To session 2, inquiry session 2 of our examination. If it doesn't stop soon, we'll have to do something about it. Yes, this is the session where we look at the economic impacts of the appeal schemes. Parties to this session are the appellants, the City of Edinburgh Council, the Coalition, if I can call them that still, and the Royal High School Preservation Trust. We'll hear first from the appellants, as usual. Are there any procedural matters or anything to raise beforehand? Any updates on timetable or agreements that we should know about? Anything from you, Mr. Steele?
Nothing from me, sir.
Mr. Thompson?
Nothing from me either, thanks, sir.
Oh, anybody else? Right, thank you very much. Can I pass over then to Mr. Steele?
Thanks, sir. Good morning. My first witness, sir, is Mr. Andrew Logan, who's already sitting at the witness table. Mr. Logan, you have the precognition in front of you. We also all have your topic paper, which we will not refer to, but probably will be referred to in any cross-examination. Could we look, please, at your precognition? And, sir, if you're agreeable, I propose to take parts of it as read and read other parts, and all tables will be taken as read, and it really shouldn't take terribly long.
Thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Mr. Logan, could you read paragraphs 1 and 2, just to introduce yourself firstly? That is of your precognition, obviously.
Yes, sir. Good morning. My name is Andrew Logan. I have worked as a professional economist for 27 years, having obtained an NMSc and a BA degrees in economics. I am employed as an Associate Director at Oxford Economics, where I've worked for 12 years, 2018 to 2006. I lead Oxford Economics' Economic Impact Assessment Team. Last financial year, August 2016, July 2017, my team undertook 55 economic impact appraisals. This is roughly half of those undertaken by my company's staff in the same year. High-profile clients I and my team undertook economic impact studies for in the year include Airbus, BP, Diageo, Etihad, Gatwick Airport, PepsiCo, Rolls-Royce, Shell and Sky. We also undertook them for a number of universities and trade bodies.
And if we could take paragraphs 3 and 4 as read in your personal statement. Section 2 deals with the nature of your appointment, and no doubt you'll be asked the questions about the appellant, so we'll leave that to cross-examination. Mr. Logan, and could I ask you to start reading the relevant matters at Section 3, please, taking all tables as read.
Net economic impact of the proposed 147-room hotel. Impact on Edinburgh's economy. On average, over the 8 years, 2019 to 2026, the proposed Rosewood Hotel with 147 rooms is estimated to make a 19 million contribution each year to Edinburgh's GDP in present value terms, 2017 prices. This is net of displacement and with a 20% optimum bias reduction. We estimate that it will support an average of 550 jobs each year in the city, figure 1. The new hotel will sustain an average of 7.8 million in extra tax receipts a year around the city. If we focus on the economic activity that is permanent, i.e. when the hotel has become established after year 3, the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 147 rooms would support an average of 21.3 million in gross value added to the city's GDP, net of displacement and with a 20% optimism bias reduction. It would support an average of 710 jobs a year. So for every one job in at the hotel, another 1.7 are supported elsewhere in the city. The new hotel is estimated to stimulate 9.6 million in additional tax receipts a year. To give a sense of scale, the Office of National Statistics annual population survey data suggests that there were 269,300 people employed in the City of Edinburgh local authority area in 2017. If the proposed hotel at 147 bedrooms supports an average of 550 people in employment over the 8 years, this is 0.2% total employment in the city. If it supports 710 people in employment in permanent jobs, this is 0.3% of total employment in the city. Oxford Economics estimates that the economic activity undertaken within the City of Edinburgh local authority area generated a 27.9 billion contribution to Scottish GDP in 2017. The average net impact on GDP supported by the proposed 147 billion hotel over all phases is estimated to be 0.1% of this contribution. The estimate of GDP contribution per annum that is permanent would also be 0.1% of the City of Edinburgh's GDP. The 7.8 million annual average in tax receipts forecast to be raised over all phases of the project would pay for 306 nurses' salary for a year, or 2008 police officers' salary at sergeant and below for a year. If the 9.6 million average tax receipts figure is used for permanent impacts, this equates to 377 nurses or 257 policemen at sergeant and below. An alternative scaler is the cost of running Edinburgh Royal Infirmary. Between April 2016 and March 2017, its running costs were £366.5 million. The taxes generated by the hotel after allowing for displacement and 20% optimism bias could finance the infirmary's running costs for a week and a day over all phases, or a week and 3 days from the hotel's permanent operation. An alternative way of judging whether net impacts are significant is to compare them to other development projects in Scotland. The Scottish Government's Planning and Environmental Appeals Division report to ministers on the hotel, sporting and recreational facilities at the Park of Keir presents evidence on the development's net economic impact. The reporter states, this significant net impact is a weighty factor in favour of the development. But when operational, the Park of Keir development is estimated to support 22 net additional jobs in the tennis and golf centre and 130 net additional jobs on-site and off-site due to the hotel. This equates to 152 net additional jobs a year, which is 21% of those estimated to be supported, i.e. 710, when the proposed Rosewood Hotel is fully established. The regional economic benefit of the tennis centre is estimated to be 4.7 million. This is only 22% of the proposed 147-bedroom hotel. The proposed 147-bedroom Rosewood Hotel's estimated annual contribution to Edinburgh Rose Graduated, net of displacement and with a 20% optimism bias, 21.3 million. Another relevant comparison is to the Stratton Film Studio. In the letter containing the Scottish Minister's proposed decision, it states, it is predicted that 600 staff will be employed at the peak of the construction period and 320 employed at the full-time during the operational phase of the development. A further 580 staff are predicted to be employed by the production companies carrying out individual productions at the site. A total of 900 full-time staff, equivalent staff. The developer indicates that if the operator also chose to operate the site as a tourism venue in its own right, then it could be expected that the additional socio-economic benefits would rise. Sorry, let me say that again. It could be expected that additional socio-economic benefits would arise. Ministers accept the reporter's conclusions at paragraph 7.39 that the proposal's net economic effect would be significantly positive both at the local and national level. These figures are not dissimilar to the 710 and the 770 ongoing net jobs in Edinburgh and Scotland. We estimate that the 147 variant of the Rosewood Hotel would support, with allowance for 20% optimum bias. Impact on Eastern Scotland region economy. The comparable figures for the 147-bedroom variant of the proposed Rosewood Hotel on the Eastern Scotland region are shown in Figure 3. The size of the multiplier impacts for the supply chain and wage consumption impacts are estimated using the employment location quotient popularised by Flegg and Webber using ONS Business Register and Employment Survey data to reflect the industrial composition of employment. Impact on the Scottish economy. We estimate that the proposed Rose 147-room Rosewood Hotel would support an average of 23 million gross value-added contribution to Scottish GDP in 2017 prices, present value terms, net of displacement and with allowance for 20% optimism bias, figure 4. This level of economic activity is estimated to employ 620 people and support 9.6 million in tax receipts each year. If we focus on the permanent impacts generated by the operation of the hotel and guest expenditure elsewhere in the economy, the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 147 jobs is estimated to support an average of 24.7 million in gross value added a year, net of displacement and applying a 20% optimism bias allowance. It is estimated to support some 770 jobs. So for every job at the hotel, another 2 jobs are supported elsewhere in the country. It is estimated to support 11 million in tax receipts a year. To give a sense of scale at the national level, we compare the estimates of the net impact of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 147 bedrooms with the gross economic impact of some of Scotland's iconic industries. We have chosen this approach as the study includes supply chain and wage consumption impact rather than the Scottish Government's industry employment statistics, which do not. But the comparison should come with the health warnings and therefore best be regarded as indicative of scale. In particular, our estimates of the Rosewood Hotel are on a net basis in that they exclude displacement and are adjusted down by 20% for optimism bias, whereas the other studies are on a gross basis, so consider neither. The proposed 147-bedroom Rosewood Hotel is estimated to support an average of 620 people in employment in Scotland each year over the first 8 years on a net basis and after allowance for 20% optimism bias. This equates to 3.1% and 1.5% of the employment supported by the golf and whisky production industries in Scotland, respectively, on a gross basis. If we consider the estimates of 770 people employed by the hotel on an ongoing basis, this is 3.9% of the employment supported by the golf industry in Scotland and 1.9% of that supported by the Scottish whisky production industry. The proposed Rosewood Hotel at 147 bedrooms is estimated to support a 23 million average gross value-added contribution to GDP in 2017 prices each year after displacement and 20% optimism bias in the first 8 years. This is 4.2 and 3.6% of the value added supported by the golf and agriculture industries in Scotland each year, respectively. If the average annual value-added contribution of 24.7 million of the 147 bedroom once operational is considered, its comparative beneficial impact increases to 4.5 and 3.8% of the golf and agriculture industry's contribution. To get an idea of the size of the tax receipts the 147-bedroom hotel is forecast to generate after allowing for displacement and 20% optimum bias, we can again compare to what it could fund in the public sector. The Scottish Government proposed spending plan for 2017-18 detail its planned expenditure across the nation. The hotel could fund 2.8 or 3.2% of the proposed Department for Culture and Tourism and External Affairs budget for 2017-18, depending on whether we focus on tax receipts generated across all phases or just whether the hotel is operational respectively.
You now turn, Mr Logan, to deal with the 127-room hotel, is that so?
I do. Net economic impacts of the proposed 127-room hotel. Impact on Edinburgh's economy. After allowing for displacement and 20% optimism bias, the build, pre-opening marketing and operation of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 127 bedrooms is estimated to generate an average of 17 million per annum in GDP at 2017 prices, present value for the Edinburgh economy over the 8-year period 2019 and 2026. We estimate that it will support around 490 local jobs on average throughout that time, figure 5. It's likely to generate an average of 6.6 million in tax receipts each year at 2017 prices, in present value terms, net of displacement. If we concentrate on the period after the initial 3-year construction and pre-opening phase, it is estimated that the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 127 rooms would support an average of 19.9 million in net gross value added a year between 2022 and 2026 in 2017 prices and in present value terms. It is likely to stimulate an average of 620 jobs in the city each year over that period. So for every job at the hotel, it is estimated to support 1.6 jobs elsewhere in the city. It is forecast to support some 8.1 million in tax receipts each year in 2017 prices in present value terms. To give a sense of scale to the employment impacts in the City of Edinburgh, if the proposed hotel at 127 bedrooms support an average of 490 people in employment over the 8 years, this is 0.2% of the total employment in the city. This is the same percentage as if it supports 620 people in employment after opening. Both calculations use the ONS annual population survey data estimate of 269,300 people employed in the City of Edinburgh local authority area in 2017. Both estimates of the GDP supported per annum by the 127 room at Rosewood after displacement and allowing for 20% optimism bias comprise 0.1% of the economic output produced in the City of Edinburgh local authority area each year. The 6.6 million in annual tax receipts, which the 127 bedroom Rosewood Hotel is estimated to support over the first 8 years, could pay for the average salaries of 261 nurses or 178 police officers at sergeant and below in Scotland. If we focus on the larger 8.1 million estimate of the average annual tax receipts the hotel would support once fully established, this could fund the salaries of 316 nurses or 216 police officers at sergeant and below in Scotland. Alternatively, comparison can be drawn with the 366.5 million running costs of Edinburgh Royal Infirmary between April 2016 and March 2017. The taxes supported by the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 127 bedrooms after allowing for displacement and 20% opt-in bias could finance the Royal Infirmary's running cost for 6.6 days over all phases or 8.8 days from the hotel's operation once fully established.
Mr Logan, in relation to paragraph 29, you refer to the Park of Keir, let's just take that briefly if we can, because I think the conclusion is that the Park of Keir benefits are 24% of the benefits of the Rosewood Hotel, and that justified a consent at the Park of Keir, I think. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, and of course there will be many questions about that from Mr Innes, who was involved in the Park of Keir, I'm sure. Now, in relation to the Straighton Film Studios, that is estimated to support 900 full-time jobs compared to 620, 690, as you tell us about for the 127-bed hotel. Is that right?
That is, yes.
Could you go on to 4.2, impact on the Eastern Scotland region's economy, please?
Impact on the Eastern Scotland region's economy. The comparable figures for the 127-bedroom variant of the proposed Rosewood Hotel on Eastern Scotland region are shown in Figure 6. The size of the multiplier impacts for the supply chain and wage consumption impacts are estimated using the employment location quotients technique popularised by Flegg and Webber, using ONS business register and employment survey data to reflect the industrial composition of the region's employment. Impact on the Scottish economy. The build and operation of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 127 rooms is expected to generate an average of 20.5 million per annum in GDP at 2017 prices, present value, for the Scottish economy over an 8-year period, 2019 to 2026, net of displacement and a 20% reduction for optimism bias. It is estimated to stimulate around 570 jobs across the country on average throughout that time. It is likely to generate an average of 7.7 million in tax receipts each year at 2017 prices in present value terms. If we concentrate on the period after the initial 3-year construction and pre-opening marketing phase, it is estimated that the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 127 rooms would sustain an average of 23.0 million in net gross value added a year in Scotland between 2022 and 2026, in 2017 prices and in present value terms. It is likely to stimulate an average of 690 jobs in the country each year over the period, so every job at the hotel is estimated to support another 1.9 elsewhere in the country. It is predicted to support some 9.1 million in tax receipts each year in 2017 prices in present value terms. The average employment estimated supported each year by the proposed 127-room Rosewood Hotel over the first 8 years of the project is 2.9 and 1.47% of that estimated supported by the Gulf and Scottish whisky production industries respectively. If just the permanent employment impacts from the hotel's operation are considered, the average number of jobs supported each year is estimated to be 3.5 and 1.7% of employment supported by the same industries respectively. After allowing for displacement and with 20% reduction for optimism bias, the proposed 127-bedroom hotel is estimated to support 20.5 million value-added contribution to Scottish GDP each year in 2017 prices. This is 3.8 and 3.2% of the golf and agriculture industries' contribution on a comparable basis, respectively. If just the permanent impacts are considered, the average annual contribution is estimated to be 4.2 and 3.6% of the two industries' contributions to GDP, respectively. The hotel could fund 2.4 or 2.8% of the proposed Department for Culture, Tourism and External Affairs budgets for 2017-18, depending on whether we focus on tax receipts generated across all phases or just when the hotel is operational, respectively. Conclusion. My evidence relates to two of the questions posed by the reporters for session 2, namely, question 1, namely, an assessment of the impacts and net economic benefits of the schemes, including job creation, economic capacity and contribution to the sustainable economic growth. Question 3, the geographic extent of the impacts and whether benefits would be reduced elsewhere, the lifetime impacts and any risk to predicted outcomes. If the proposed Rosewood Hotel is built with 147 rooms, the net impact after displacement and with a 20% allowance for optimism bias on Edinburgh's gross value added is estimated to average 21.3 million a year once operational in 2017 prices in present value terms. It is estimated to support an annual average of 710 jobs a year in the city on an ongoing basis. The estimates of the net impact with 20% allowance for optimism bias on the whole of Scotland are larger. We estimate that the proposed 147-bedroom Rosewood Hotel would support an annual average gross value added contribution to Scottish GDP of 24.7 million in 2017 prices present value terms. The level of economic activity is estimated to employ 770 people. In total, on a net basis, with 20% optimism bias, the 127-room project is forecast to generate 19.9 million per annum in GDP at 2017 prices in present value terms for the Edinburgh economy on an ongoing basis once operational. It is estimated to support around 620 local jobs on average. For the whole of Scotland, the operation of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at 127 rooms is estimated to generate a net average of 23 million per annum in GDP at 2017 prices present value. It is estimated to stimulate around 690 jobs across the country on average. To assist in the judgment of whether the impacts are economically significant, I have drawn relevant comparisons for each metric with other projects that have received planning permission. On this basis, I judge the impacts to be of regional and national importance.
Now, there's just a couple of additional matters, Mr Logan, if I may. Firstly, in relation to Park of Keir, to which you've referred, do you understand consent was granted?
I do.
And that one of the factors in favour of the grant of consent were the economic advantages. Is that so?
Correct. I agree.
And were you aware that Mr Innes appeared at the Park of Keir inquiry in opposition to a grant of consent?
Sir, I have to say I don't see the relevance of my appearance at Park of Keir. The inquiry documents haven't been lodged. The reporter actually recommended refusal, and we could have had a whole lot of debate about it if it had been lodged. I can't see the relevance of my personal appearing at Park of Keir as being a relevant question to this inquiry.
Entirely agree, yes. As a matter of fact, but entirely agree it's not relevant.
No, it's not strictly relevant. That's absolutely so. It's just a little bit of background to the matter, sir. And I can't see why my learned friend is so concerned about the excellent publicity I'm giving him. But if he is concerned about that, we can pass on. Now, the second point, if I may ask you about, Mr. Logan, is this Rosewood. You have referred to Rosewood on numerous occasions within your evidence. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And I dare say there'll be the odd question or two about Rosewood, but do I understand correctly that so far as the method of securing Rosewoods as the hotel here is concerned, that will be dealt with by other witnesses, and that's not a question for you. Is that correct?
That is correct.
However, from your point of view, what difference does it make if it's another hotel of the same calibre, by which I mean a world-class luxury hotel? Would it matter to you if it's the same type of hotel in terms of the calculations and evidence that you've given?
No, in the sense that what I'm looking and how the models work is to look at the expenditure that the hotel brings into the Edinburgh, the Eastern region and the national economy. So I'm not particularly interested in the brand, I'm just interested in how much they spend and what activity that stimulates. So from my perspective, if it's a world-class luxury hotel, the Rosewood brand doesn't matter to me.
So that, for instance, if it was another brand such as Four Seasons or the Mandarin Oriental, would that make any difference to your evidence?
No, as long as they spent the same amount of money. So it's for us, how the economic models work is about expenditure and what that expenditure stimulates. So no, that wouldn't impact if it was Four Seasons or
to try and save time in cross-examination, do we agree that it would be different if it was a budget hotel operator selling bunk beds at £10 a night or something of that nature?
Yes, absolutely, because there would be less expenditure introduced into the economy.
So that's not what we're talking about here. Is that correct?
No, we're talking about a world-class luxury hotel, and my own interest is in the sort of expenditure and what that stimulates around the Scottish and the Edinburgh economy.
Thank you. Now, finally, you had read the report prepared by Dr. Conlon and the document that he has lodged. He had two comments, or to be fair, criticisms of you, namely displacement and optimism bias. Is that as you understand the position?
Yes, that's true.
And is it correct to suggest to you that you have addressed these in your evidence?
Yes, I've made assumptions for optimism bias and displacement, yeah.
So do you understand that that should have the effect of reducing any dispute between the parties and therefore any cross-examination?
Well, I think that's an absolutely ridiculous question to ask a witness who's about to be cross-examined about what is up for cross-examination. I just can't believe that Mr. Steele is reducing this public inquiry to these type of approach. It really does reduce these proceedings to a farce, and I do object to the way in which that question was put.
Sir, as a matter of fact, the witness has addressed the issues and criticisms that were made in that report with a view to speeding matters up. That is the factual position, and I'm perfectly entitled to put that, and I don't understand why Mr. Innes is so jumpy about it.
It's nice that you have that aspiration, but we will see in due course whether it has any effect on cross-examination.
Well,
So
indeed we will. Thank you, sir. Mr. Logan, is it correct that in your evidence you have sought to address the displacement issue and the optimism bias issue as set out in Dr. Conlon's earlier report?
Yes, I have addressed displacement and optimism bias.
And so far as you're concerned as a professional witness, should that reduce the element of dispute between the parties?
Yes, but there's lots of debates about optimism bias, and so I'm sure I'll get some questions about that.
Can I just ask where you've addressed this, just for my note?
Well, I thought I'd address them in the assumptions I've made, and I hoped I was transparent in where I had sourced my optimism bias.
So not
assumptions.
since you've seen
So I haven't.
the other report?
No.
No, okay.
Well, could we just look at that, Mr. Logan? You saw the report, or the earlier criticisms by Dr. Conlon some considerable time ago. Is that correct?
Yes, I've seen the first report by London Economics, Dr. Conlon.
And that did criticise the issue of displacement and optimism bias. Is that so?
Amongst other things, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as I understand it, in your precognition that's lodged and you've just read out, and in your inquiry report dated the 6th of August, you have addressed these very issues and made certain assumptions about just both displacement and optimism bias.
Yes.
And I think your optimism bias figure is 20%, as you've just read out in your precognition.
That is correct.
Fine, thank you very much. I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Mr. Thompson, would you like to ask some questions?
Thank you, sir. Yes, please. Good morning, Mr. Logan.
Good morning.
I confess I'm not an economist, so please forgive me if some of my questions seem rather amateurish. But I'm simply trying to make the best I can of trying to understand some of the documents that you've produced. Could I ask you to have to hand, please, CDs 39, 56, 201 and 204? And
So could we just have these numbers again?
yes, 39, 56, 201 and 204. For ease of identification, they're the two developer statements for Schemes 1 and 2, and the corresponding Oxford economic impact reports for Schemes 1 and 2. And I'm going to these because they seem to give quite a lot of detail about the basic methodology, which in some of the later reports seem to be taken as read. And I'm also interested in the way in which your evidence from your reports were used by the developers in the developer statement. So if we start with the developer statement for Scheme 1, CD 39, and look at the executive summary at page 3, we find some initial figures in about the fourth paragraph, 2/3 of the way down, page 3, where it said that the project, this is Scheme 1, will generate over 800 jobs, either directly or indirectly, for the city, and over 900 jobs for Scotland. It will secure £31 million per annum in GDP for the Edinburgh economy, and a further £38.7 million per annum for Scotland. Hotel guests are projected to spend £13.6 million per annum within Edinburgh, and annual tax receipts are projected to be £15.9 million. Now, can we agree, to start with, that the 800 jobs in Edinburgh are included in the 900 jobs for Scotland?
Yes.
And similarly, can we agree that the £31 million per annum in GDP for Edinburgh is included in the 38.7 per annum in Scotland.
Yes, that's correct.
And could I suggest that the use of the word "and a further 38.7 is potentially misleading?
Yes, I would agree with that. So it's 31 million for Edinburgh and 38.7 for Scotland.
Yes. So I'm trying to be careful to limit myself to questions that are appropriately within your sphere of evidence, and think about which ones to save for other people. Could we turn then to page 36? No, I'm sorry. 45. Here we're getting I think the expanded version of what we saw in the executive summary. And again, essentially the same figures. And I think finally the same figures are summarized at page 49. And if you look at the paragraph at the bottom of page 49, you see that each and every year there will be 260 direct jobs within the hotel, 220 indirect jobs through local suppliers to the hotel, £31 million added to the Edinburgh economy, plus an additional 36.7 million going to the Scottish economy. And I take it we can agree again that that's potentially misleading because the 31 million is in the 36.7.
Yes.
In that case, could I ask you to move on, please, to CD 56? And could I draw your attention to a footnote on page 11, footnote 6, which, as I understand it, is explaining that the term GDP is used in this report, whereas the technically correct expression would be gross value added, GVA. Could you just help me to understand the difference, please?
Sure. Gross value added. Sorry, let's start again. When statisticians try to calculate the economic impact of, or when they try to measure a firm or a institution's contribution to the economy, they calculate gross value added. Now that is, in simple terms, the difference between the value of the sales made by a company or an institution minus the value of the bought-in goods and services that they use up in the production of their output.
A bit like calculating VAT.
Absolutely. Now, so when one talks about an institution or a company's gross value added output, one would use the term gross value added. But to calculate the impact of the total economy, we add up, the statisticians add up the gross value added of each individual company or each individual institution, and they sum that up to a total, and then they add and subtract taxes and subsidies on production to get to GDP. So in essence, and that's not a large amount, the taxes and subsidies, because there's not a great deal of taxes and subsidies in the UK economy relative to others. So in essence, gross value added is the representation for an individual company of GDP for the economy. So in colloquial terms, because when we tend to communicate with non-economists, we would use the word GDP and gross value added interchangeably, because non-economists haven't heard of gross value added. They tend to glaze over, and I've certainly had people say to me, what's this G thing? Whereas they would have had a GDP because they see that on the news once a quarter or once a month.
And from your point of view, what is the significance in looking at these GDP figures? Is it a measure of economic activity, or how should we understand it when trying to assess economic impact?
We tend to try to measure economic impact using 3 standard metrics. That would be common across pretty much all providers of economic impact studies. One would be employment, one would be the tax revenues provided, and the third would be the economic output. So GDP is the representation of economic output. So it's how much does the hotel contribute to the Edinburgh economy, the Scottish economy, in output terms.
It's very helpful, thank you. Could we move on then, please, to page 15 and 16 of CD 56? And here we've got the summary of impacts and the overview of results at 2.1. And moving down to the last paragraph in 2.1 on page 15, I think we see the figures that we looked at a moment ago summarised in the developer statement. So far, so good? Yeah. And then yes. If we look across to the tables on the other page, I appreciate that you've looked at the construction phase and the pre-opening phase, but what I'm more interested in, and what I'm going to be asking about, are the operational phase, where I think we get a clear picture of the predicted economic impact once the hotel's up and running. And if we look at table 2.3, do we see very clearly there the fact that the Edinburgh figures are in the Scotland figures? So the direct ones carry down directly into the Scottish ones, whereas the indirect and induced ones pick up a little extra before they get to the Scottish figures.
Yes, so the direct impact refers to the hotel, and the hotel is in Edinburgh, whereas the indirect refers to the supply chain, and the induced impact refers to the fact that both the hotel staff and the staff around the supply chain will spend their wages, and not all of that activity will occur within Edinburgh. They will spend outside of Edinburgh. So that's why the direct is just for Edinburgh, and the indirect induced in the tourism expenditure are bigger for Scotland than they are for Edinburgh.
And then over the page we get to table 2.4, which shows impacts over 12 years, and table 2.5 over 5 years. What's the significance of looking at 12 years and then looking at 5?
I'm not sure, to be honest. I think they're just different time periods. I'm not sure.
That's
I can't remember, I'm afraid. But
seemed like a good idea at the time.
Well,
does 10 years relate to the valuation process, perhaps? If you don't know, please just say so.
So I'm afraid I don't know. The data I was given was for 12 years, so right. That's why the 12 is there. I can't remember. That data was given to us by Urbanist Hotels.
And then if we turn over to page 19, we see a little table of operational phase tax contribution by type of tax. And it may just be me, but this, I think, is the only place that I've actually found this sort of tax breakdown given. And I think the purpose of the table is to demonstrate how much of the tax revenue from all this economic activity would find its way back to Scotland. Is that right?
I guess the purpose of the table is to show the sources of tax, and you're right, there's a percentage. The second column would suggest, as you're saying, that is the percentage that comes back to Scotland.
What I'm interested in is the first two rows, income tax on employee income, and then there's a total tax contribution by type of £1 million per annum, and that's 1.3. And then below that, national insurance and corporation tax, a much bigger £5.6 million per annum. And I could ask, who's going to be paying the corporation tax?
So they are total estimates. So that would be both the hotel, it would be all the firms in the hotel supply chain, it would be all the firms in the that benefit from the staff's wage spending, wage funded spending, and it would also be all the people, all the shops, all the retail outlets, all the museums, etc., that benefit from the tourist spending. Does that make sense?
Would it include the tax on the profit arising from the operation of the hotel?
It would.
And if the vehicle for developing the hotel and then running it is a limited liability partnership or a limited partnership, would they be paying corporation tax or a form of income tax? Or is that something you haven't thought about?
That was something I haven't thought about, and I don't know the answer, I'm afraid.
But the intention is that the tax on the profit is in that figure.
Yes.
Thank you. And if we could move on, please, to page 27 and 28. Paragraph 5.1, you're here looking at the direct impacts in the operational phase. The direct GDP impact for Edinburgh is based on the total of the employee compensation and profit estimates provided by Urbanist Hotels, and works out an annual average of £9.7 million at 2015 prices. Now, does that mean that the £9.7 million is the sum of the total employee compensation and the estimated profit arising to the operators or developers or whoever it is at that stage?
Yes.
And if we're at the operational phase, there'll be investors who will be holding the asset and deriving the profit. Do you know, or did you know in 2015, if the investors were on board yet?
In 2015, I didn't know it was going to be a Rosewood Hotel, so I hadn't been told the identity of the hotel.
Well, that's the operator. What about the investors?
So I don't understand.
Well,
missing the point.
an operator comes along and operates a hotel. An investor puts his money in to build it in the first place. Now, is it your understanding that Rosewood is putting in the £75 million, whatever it is, to build this? and then intend to operate it, or are they going to operate it once it's been built by investors? Again, if you don't know.
I don't know. I would suggest you take that up with the hotel experts that are following me.
Well, the reason I'm taking it up with you is to understand more about this £9.7 million and to try to understand whether we know if that's profit, which we do know that a part of it is profit, which is what you've just been telling me, whether that's going to be spent in the UK or elsewhere.
So I know absolutely nothing. That's just the profit estimate on the hotel plus the employee compensation paid by the staff. I don't know where the profit's going to go. If that makes sense.
And again, I may have been misleading myself, but looking at the table we looked at a moment ago, 2.5 on page 19, it seemed that a substantial amount compared to the tax on employees was being paid on profit.
The table on 2.5 refers to, as I said, the direct, that's the hotel, all the supply chain spending, all the companies who benefit from the supply chain spending, all the companies that benefit from the wage consumption impacts, and all the companies that benefit from the tourism spending. So you can't really relate the two.
Right. Well, are you able to help me on how the £9.7 million divides between employee compensation and estimated profit?
I can't remember the figures we were given, but we've been given estimates of the profit and estimates of the employee compensation.
Roughly half and half, or
I can't remember enough to be able to speculate one way or the other.
You then look at indirect and induced impacts of the operational phase and the additional tourist impacts, and you then have a bar graph on the second half of page 30, which I think summarises the figures. And if we look at the GDP column, I think a later version of this has the numbers helpfully written on it, but am I right in understanding that the dark blue chunk at the bottom, the direct, is the 9.7 that we've just been looking at, followed by indirect of 6.3, induced of 5.1, and tourism of 10.4.
That looks about right from the chart, yes.
And if we look at 5.4.1, the total tourism impact is put at 10.4 million per annum. And then if we go up to the table at the top of that page, 5.1, we see the estimated spending in Edinburgh by guests at the new hotel. And we see the accommodation and eating and drinking. And the accommodation, of course, is wholly within the hotel. But when we get to eating and drinking, some of it's in the hotel and some of it's out with the hotel. But shopping, culture and transport are all out with the hotel. And I was trying to find where this £10.4 million figure came from. And if you add up the shopping, culture and transport, it comes to 10.4. Is that where it comes from, or is that just a numerical coincidence?
That's a numerical coincidence. So the figures you see in table 5.1 are just expenditure figures. whereas we're talking about GDP, which is, as is described earlier, it's the turnover minus the bought-in goods and services. So you can't relate the two. They're not comparable.
Right. Now, am I right in thinking that this report ignores displacement completely?
That is true. There might be some nice words about displacement, but there's no actual estimate.
Right. And you'll be aware, I take it, that the Scottish Planning Policy document, which came into force in June 2014, and we're looking at September 2015, required net impact to be assessed, but no attempt was made to do that in this document.
No, because I think there's a greater transparency about doing it on a gross basis, because you get into assumptions about displacement and you get into assumptions about optimism bias. But this one is on a gross basis, so you're right, it wasn't compatible.
Well, the other way of looking at it is that it's downright misleading, because it doesn't make any allowance for displacement in a document that's supposed to be representing economic impact, does it?
It's quite transparent in the fact that about what it's doing, so I don't feel that I'm misleading anyone.
It's transparent to you, but to the lay reader, looking at these figures, they might well be forgiven for thinking that these were reliable figures, that they didn't have to worry about the small print. But if they've ignored displacement, then potentially anyone is going to be misled reading this, aren't they?
Well, as I said, it's been transparent that there's no discussion of displacement, so I would have to leave it to the reader to infer whether they. I would be speculating on what the reader takes out of that.
Well, you said there are some nice words, but can you show me where the nice words are that explain that there is such a thing as displacement? But this, to keep things simple and easy, has just looked at gross. Could I help you by suggesting that the words you may be looking for are in fact in the next economic impact assessment, the February 2017 one, CD 204, and they're to be found at page 31 of that document. Perhaps you could just have a look at that and see if...
Sorry, what number document is that?
It's CD 204.
This one.
This, as I understand it, is the equivalent report. I take it prepared by you or with your approval for Scheme 2.
That's correct. And you're right, there is a couple of pages on the difference between a net and gross study, which will discuss displacement.
Yeah. But is there any equivalent to this in the one that we've just been looking at now? And when you got to this stage, in 2017, you identified the Scottish planning policy and you reference it in the footnote. Then you say, we have chosen not to present results on a net basis due to the practical problems faced in measuring each of the three concepts. and that's deadweight displacement and whatever the other one is. We think it better to present observations about the likely scale of each of these impacts and the factors that drive their magnitude, rather than come up with spuriously accurate estimates by applying scaling factors for mild, medium or strong, or lower and upper ranges. But in fact, in this document, you don't apply anything, do you? The figures, when you look at them, are pure gross.
In this document, yes, you're correct. They are gross. We just discussed, as we said, we just talk about the issues.
Yeah. And when you came to produce net economic impact of the proposed Rosewood Hotel, CD 597, how did you overcome the problem of coming up with spuriously accurate estimates, or is that what you actually came up with?
I would argue that the economist profession doesn't have a crystal ball, so I cannot, with 100% accuracy, forecast a world when there is the hotel and a world where there isn't a hotel, the hotel being built. So I think my hesitation in doing so, but the hesitation in that's why I first couple of times round it was a gross estimate. But we were criticised by the London economics paper, so at that point we made some estimates of the net impacts to be more consistent with the guidance, and we draw very heavily on a paper by HVS that looks at the impact on the rest of the hotel sector in Edinburgh with and without the hotel.
So you relied on them?
As I understand, HVS are hotel experts, so I used their forecasts of the numbers of visitors to the number of sort of bed nights lost by the other hotels. So yes, I used their.
And when you got to your inquiry report, which is summarised in the precognition that you read out this morning, am I right in understanding that you've assumed that displacement only lasts for 1 year?
Yes, that's true.
And is that based on advice that you've received from HVS? Or is that partly your own economic assessment?
It's the worst case scenario. Obviously, displacement is, as I said, coming back to the crystal ball, no one knows how long displacement will occur. We can talk about the factors that might drive it, but it's a worst, as I understand the HVS report, it's a worst case scenario for the first year. So it's a maximum, if that makes sense to you.
And have you thought about displacement of both hotel customers and staff?
So if you lose, well, for me that's the same thing as in if we're talking about expenditure being taken away from other hotels, that's going to lose jobs. So for me that's the same thing, if I understood you correctly.
Thank you. And then if we turn back to the earlier part of CD 204, there's a summary on page 14 which gives us the equivalent figures to the one that we've been looking at in the 2015 impact assessment, but different because we've now got a different price base of 2017, and we've got a different size of hotel that we're assessing the impact of.
Yes, correct.
But otherwise, the layout and the figures that you're looking at are essentially the same. You're looking at generating gross domestic product. You're looking at jobs, and you're looking at taxation, and you're looking at it both for Edinburgh and for Scotland.
Correct.
If we turn to page 25, we're now looking at the direct impacts of the operational phase 2021 to 2025. And we're seeing that the equivalent annual average of GDP from employee compensation and profit is now £12.4 million. And we've got the new employee figure of 235. Has that GDP figure gone up because of the price base, although the size of the hotel's gone down?
So yes, the price base will impact that.
But there's no other reason for it to have gone up by 3 million. Seems quite a large increase.
It would, well, no, in the sense that we've used the estimates for the 127 hotel of employee compensation and profit. So it would also reflect the new. It's both the new data and the fact that we've used a new base year. If that makes sense.
But there are fewer employees in the new hotel. Yes. And again, are you able to assist me at all in the split between employee remuneration and profit?
I can't remember. Sorry, no, I can't.
But you would have known when you did it.
Oh, yes. So, yes, I would have had the data for both.
And again, supplied by Urbanist Hotels.
Agreed.
And then at page 29 and on to 30, I think we see the same block bar graph presentation of the same sort of figures, but this time with the figures written on to make it a little easier to follow.
Correct.
And at page 27, I think we find the same analysis of the spending of the guests.
Correct.
But I don't think we see anything about the taxation split in this one.
Correct.
Was there a reason for leaving it out this time?
If there was, I can't remember it. I don't think it was I don't think there was any skullduggery going on. Just I can't remember.
I wasn't suggesting anything sinister. And I should have just looked at those tables. On the one we looked at before, you looked at 5 and 12 years. Here, I think you looked at 5 and 8. Is that right?
That reflects the data we were given. So the second time round, we were given data for just the 8 years, whereas the first time we were given data for 12 years.
Right. And just looking at the top of page 33, I think this was the explanation of why you weren't including displacement. You were gaining comfort from findings supporting a conclusion that the new hotel would complement the city's existing accommodation stock rather than compete over scarce demand. And again, I take it that you're relying, for what you say there, on information provided by HVS.
Correct.
And if I could just ask you to turn very briefly to CD 201. As I understand this document, it's an update of the previous one that we looked at. It's effectively an addendum to the original, which is an appendix to the back of this, and it's simply summarizing largely the move from 147 to 127 because of planning and design issues. But at page 3, in the paragraph at the bottom of the page, it summarizes, I think, the figures from your report that we've just been looking at. And I think it's a little briefer this time, but it says there will be 235 direct jobs created, training programs at all levels, and an additional 665 indirect jobs created through the supply chain. Tax revenues of £11.6 million per annum will be generated, with over 30.2 million GDP to the Scottish economy every year throughout all phases of the development. And again, those are figures taken simply from the report. Is that right?
Yes, I presume so.
Yes. Thank you. Just one other matter about displacement. Could you look, please, at your inquiry report, which I think is APP 47, and it's paragraph 18 that I'm interested in. And perhaps you could just remind yourself by reading paragraph 18. What I was wondering was why you regard allowing for displacement only in the first year as the worst case scenario?
It's the worst case scenario in the first year, so it's the maximum in the first year. Does that make?
And what displacement allowance did you make for the first year? Did you assume that it was 100%?
I use the HVS forecasts to estimate.
Right. But I take it 100% would be the worst case. When I'm just trying to understand worst case, why you used it in relation to the first year.
No, absolutely. 100% would be the worst case scenario that you could ever get. And that's the 100% maximum, isn't it?
But to you, any significant displacement is worst case?
So this is based. This is the worst case based on the estimates of demand and supply of hotel space created by HVS. So it's their version of worst case, if that makes sense.
And then you go on to say, as it is not known how long they will persist before they are offset by demand growth. Does that mean that year one's worst case, and beyond that it may be happening, but you're not allowing for it?
That's true, yeah, absolutely. So we expect and I should perhaps not say too much because I'm not a hotel expert and I'm about to be followed by two hotel experts, but I understand that the market demand is increasing.
And one final matter, have you seen Kyle Drummond's precognition, the economic advisor to the council?
Yes.
And you're aware that he made a comment on your inquiry report, paragraph 7.1. Do I take it from the fact that you haven't rebutted that you accept it?
Can I see it? Or?
Yep.
You want me to look at 7.1?
Yeah, please.
So as in terms of paragraph 27, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
Yes, no, so there are two data sources on employment. One's the Business Register Employment Survey, one's the Annual Population Survey. I am not unhappy with, yes, absolutely, BRES is more, sorry, that's the Business Register Employment Survey. BRES is used for employment estimates, so I'm not unhappy with that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Logan. Thank you, Saz.
Thank you. It would seem to me to be a convenient point to take a mid-morning break, so we'll come back at 25 to 12. I take it you understand shouldn't be talking to anyone.
Mr. Steele took Mr. Logan off piste briefly, so I have one topic to cover. Mr. Logan, you were asked a question by Mr. Steele about the applicability of your research to other hotel brands. And if I remember correctly, he put to you whether it would apply to the Mandarin Oriental or Four Seasons. Now, at the top level, I'm assuming that whether it applies to particular qualities of hotel is generally something you would defer to other witnesses who are going to follow you because you're not a hotel expert. Have I got that right?
That's correct.
But just to be absolutely clear, so there's no confusion here, I wondered if we could just look at CD 506, page 27, 5.1, paragraph 5.1. CD 56, sorry, your first report.
Sorry, and the page reference again, please.
It relates to page 27 and paragraph 5.1.
Thank you.
That should be the section headed direct impacts. And I just wanted to check that I read the first sentence correctly, that the data that you used, in a sense, as the basis for your understanding of the employee earnings, staff numbers, profit estimates for the project that's assessed in this report come from urbanist hotels.
That's correct.
And when you said to Mr. Thompson that you didn't mention Rosewood in this report, it's not that it might not have come from Rosewood, but you didn't get it from Rosewood, you got it from Urbanist. If we could just look at 204, which is your next report, page 25 this time.
Page
25, section 5, very top of the paragraph, first sentence. So, simple question is, I read this to the base data for 204 is actually the base data for the earlier report, upgraded by you to reflect price terms, but it's the same original data set, or is there a new data set?
Given two data sets, one was for the 147 variant and the other was for the 127 variant.
Understand. So the 127 variant that you're discussing in this report is a fresh data set, also from Urbanist?
Yes.
Got it. And then we go to 597. Page 10. Well, in fact, I can take it generally, I think. 597 builds on the two previous data sets and upgrades them in terms of inflation. Then you analyse them in a slightly different way. Have I got that right?
Yes, so 597 it would put them on. It's a different base year in terms of prices, because obviously time's moved on. There's no much point talking about 2015 prices. We've taken the first proposal into 2017 prices. So what was the second question?
So all I'm trying to check is that 597, your report produced that addressed some of the issues that other people have raised, is built on the same two data sets for its two different streams.
Yes.
Right. And that you're not a hotel expert. I'm clear about that. You've not got some secret expert.
I am not a hotel expert.
So would it be fairer to say that your data and your conclusions are best applied to hotels that are like the one you received the data set for? Because you don't know how Mandarin Oriental or Four Seasons operate their business. So it's a hotel, you've been told a set of data, and your conclusions apply to hotels like that one.
So my conclusions are based on the expenditure projections. So as long as the hotel is, so if the hotel is spending that amount of money, so I to some degree, it doesn't matter to me. I'm more interested in how much money they're spending on inputs of goods and services from around Scotland than the type of hotel it is. Sorry.
Presumably that's why you felt able to answer Mr. Steele's question that your data wouldn't apply to a budget hotel, because I think it's obvious that a budget hotel is going to have less spend.
Yes, although I'm obviously not a hotel expert, I would presume that from my minimal knowledge of hotels, then I would presume that a Premier Inn, for example, would spend a lot less money sourcing products from Scotland than a world-class luxury hotel.
But the reporters, should they... I'll put a conclusion to you, see if you accept it. So we might later on today have evidence, we've got some written materials about the differences between various brands of hotel at the higher end of the market. You're not able to speak about whether your data applies to, for example, a Radisson Collection or a Balmoral or a Rosewood or a Four Seasons. These are hotel brands that you're not expert on, and as you said, it's the expenditure figures and the staffing numbers that you're building off your report on.
That's true.
Thank you very much. Now, I'm not going to ask you any more questions, simply because although you might have read the recognition by Dr. Batas, I understand that any topic that he raises that relevant to you is going to be covered by Mr. Innes. So to save time, I'm going to hand over to Mr. Innes.
Thank you, Mr. McIntosh. Mr. Innes, you're handed over to.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Logan.
Good morning.
Could I ask you, first of all, about your initial instruction on the 17th of August 2015, please? Who precisely were you instructed by, and what was the remit that you were given?
I was instructed by Urbanist Group, and I was asked to estimate the economic impact of the 147 proposal.
And who at Urbanist instructed you?
I think it was TACO.
Okay. And how was the instruction given? Were you given a telephone call, an email, a letter? How was the instruction given?
It was a telephone call via one of my sales colleagues.
Okay. So they've been contacted by Urbanist Hotels to see whether you or your consultancy could assist with a matter they wanted to put before a planning application.
I don't think at that point I realised it was a planning inquiry, but I was so I was asked to estimate the economic impact of a 147 hotel.
Were you aware at the time that the document was going to be used in a planning context to support a planning application?
I don't think I was at the first conversation.
And obviously after that first conversation, were you asked to quote or produce a document which set out the terms of what you were going to do for them?
Yes, I would have either sent an email or a letter saying this is what we'll do and this will be the price and this is how long it will take.
And insofar as the first report was concerned, that was produced on the 3rd of September. So this was all quite urgent, wasn't it?
So I think we did it relatively quickly, yes.
Mm-hmm. So insofar as options are concerned, in undertaking an economic impact assessment, are there a range of options in terms of conducting such an assessment?
Could you tell me what you mean by options?
Well, suffice to say that there are a range of economic impact assessments. Some could be gross, some could include a net basis. Did you offer a menu of opportunity in terms of what sort of report you would produce?
No.
In terms of it, was it your choice to produce a gross impact assessment?
I think probably yes, yeah.
And in terms of the figures provided, this is going to be a theme throughout. They were provided to you by Urbanist Hotels, is that correct?
That is correct.
Was the basis of the figures set out for you as to where they had originated from?
No, I just received a spreadsheet with the data in.
Okay. Did you, and I'm not asking about any of the particular matters of the data set, because as I understand, Mr. Finney takes the view that this particular data set is commercially confidential. Is that correct?
I would, well, by all means, ask Mr. Finney whether, I would say yes, but yeah.
Insofar as the way in which the report's been prepared, would you accept that whilst output figures have been given, you haven't been entirely explicit at how the input figures are broken down, for example?
So I have not revealed the data we were given?
No.
Deliberately?
Are you under a confidentiality provision not to do that?
I would think yes.
Yeah, okay. I don't want to waste time asking you
Sure.
questions. If we can agree at this point in time that that is an area to where there's a wall and I cannot approach, is that fair? Would that be fair?
Probably for two reasons. One, I can't remember the data. I can't really recall the actual numbers, but yes, yeah.
Now, having produced CD 56, which was the report in respect of the second application, you were then subsequently instructed to prepare a second report, which essentially supported a second planning application. When were you instructed to actually, you say 6th February, was it really 6th February for 10th February?
That would strike me as too short, but I was... to be honest, I can't remember, but we couldn't do it in 4 days. No, that's...
Insofar as the second instruction was concerned, again, who provided the instruction to you?
The same people.
The same people. And what was the second instruction that was given to you?
Just simply, could we calculate the economic impact? Could we repeat the study? And could we do it for this set of data?
You were taken to a second, an additional part of that report, CD204, which deals with the question of net and gross. Can you understand the context of why that was added to the report at that time?
It was pointed out to us at the time that the Scottish Government guidance was pointed out to us.
And who pointed out the Scottish Government guidance to you?
Someone from, do you want names? I think it was probably Jim Sorrell.
So you were in correspondence with Jim Sorrell relating to Scheme 2, is that correct?
He would have told me that it had to be on well, we had to take into account net impacts.
Okay. So in terms of Scheme 2, you were advised that you should take into account net impacts, and that was his planning advice to you.
Yes.
Now, at the time, were you given copies of the SPP and the draft guidance on net impact?
Probably yes. Yep.
Mm-hmm. And insofar as the position was concerned, you were instructed, have you got a rough date?
I would guess it would take us about a month and a half before we publish the paper.
So possibly January of that year, January 2017, would that be?
I'm speculating.
Yeah, you can't remember. No.
But somewhere, that would seem sensible. It would take us.
Yeah. And insofar as an exercise of actually undertaking a net assessment, would it be fair to say that your own consultancy would not be capable of undertaking all the work necessary to undertake the net assessment basis?
I would say no, because net assessments are done with assumptions. So we could have done it. We would have done it. We could have done it using some of the government guidance assumptions, but we certainly couldn't do what HVS did in terms of projecting the demand and supply of hotels. So absolutely, if in terms of what we actually did in the end, we are totally, we rely on HVS because we would not project hotel occupancy and things and the kind of hotel prices, etc.
But one thing we can be agreed on, that you have a good understanding of what might be involved in undertaking a gross versus net impact analysis.
Yes.
Yeah. Obviously, we then have planning application number 2 is submitted, and further representations are made to that. And subsequent to that, you were instructed to, no doubt, to do additional work to produce the additional economic report that became 597. Is that correct?
If that's the net and gross one, yes,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, CD 597. Now, insofar as how that report was prepared, who instructed you to prepare it?
I presume the same people, TACO.
Who?
Sorry, TACO.
TACO who?
Sorry, Urbanist Group.
All right, okay. And was anybody else involved in this? Did you have any meetings, for example, before the reports were prepared?
I don't think so. There might, certainly not face to face.
And can we accept that, given you are the authors of CD 597, that you are responsible for the overall report and the inputs and outputs from it?
Yes, although I would argue I use other people's data,
Yeah.
be that the ONS or be that HBS's forecasts.
And insofar as the analysis was concerned, was it to seek to have a report which had had due regard to the Her Majesty's Treasury Green Book?
Yes, it was, yes.
Yeah. And insofar as that's concerned, presumably, did you have discussions with HVS about some of the issues that might arise in undertaking an assessment which is derived from the principles of the Green Book?
I don't think we did. No.
Right. Is a Green Book analysis, I presume, is a document that you're very familiar with, and the approaches which are advocated in it?
Yes.
I just want to look at a number of aspects of Green Book with you, and you'll be pleased to hear this isn't going to be the whole of it, but just a couple of selected passages. Could you have Royal High School Trust, document number 9, please? Yes, you've got it. There is an updated version, but I presume that the work that you had undertaken would have had regard to the earlier version of the Green Book. Is that correct?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah. So I've got the right one. Can I ask you, first of all, to look at page 6 and about presenting the results, please? Yep. Can we look at paragraph 230, please? And do we see there that the ultimate outcome of any appraisal is a decision whether or not to proceed with a proposal or particular option? As these decisions will often have far-reaching consequences, the presentation of conclusions and recommendations to decision-makers and key stakeholders can be as important as the analysis itself. It then goes on to say that in all cases, transparency is vital. Do you see that?
Yes.
And would you agree that understanding how key inputs have been formulated would be one of the transparencies in relation to a compliant Green Book analysis?
Yes.
And at 214, do we see that reports should provide sufficient evidence to support their conclusions and recommendations, and they provide an easy audit trail? Do we see that?
Yes.
And from that, it's expected that the reader would have the ability to check calculations. Is that correct?
So where does it say that?
Well,
sentence am I, or you just
2.14, second sentence. They should provide an easy audit trail for the reader to check calculations, supporting evidence and assumptions.
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Yeah. And the fundamental conclusion is this should help to ensure that decision-makers understand the assumptions underlying the conclusions of the analysis and the recommendations put forward. Do we see that?
Yes.
Now, 215 raises another issue which is common in a Green Book analysis, and that is sensitivity. And do we see that the results of sensitivity and scenario analyses should also generally be included in presentations and summary reports to decision-makers rather than just single-point estimates of expected values? Do we see that?
Yes.
So the general presumption in a Green Book analysis is that one will not have just a single estimate.
Yes, but you'd normally put it in an appendix or something like that, but I would agree.
And why that particular is put forward is decision-makers need to understand that there are a range of potential outcomes, and hence to judge the capacity of the proposals to withstand future uncertainty.
Correct.
Yeah. I just want to go on in the Green Book to paragraph 5.69 on page 32, please. Do we see in paragraph 5.69 that the sensitivity analysis is fundamental to appraisal? It is used to test the vulnerability of options to unavoidable future uncertainties. And then we get a reference to, I think, a passage that you've referred to in your report for 2017. Spurious accuracy should be avoided, and it is essential to consider how conclusions may alter given the likely range of values that key variables may have. Therefore, the need for sensitivity analysis should always be considered and in practice dispensed with only in exceptional cases. Do we see that?
Yes.
So, we then read on. In terms of 5.71, we get examples of variables that are likely to be both inherently uncertain and fundamental to an appraisal, and they include growth of real wages, forecast revenues, demand, prices, and assumptions about transfer of risks. A prior analysis of costs into fixed, variable, and semi-variable categories can help understand the sensitivity of the total cost of proposals. Do we see that?
Yep.
Now, can we agree at this stage, because I'm going to come on to look at it in some detail, that forecast revenues are included in your assessment?
That's true.
And in the context of the Hittel analysis, both demand and prices are incorporated in that analysis?
That's true too.
Yeah. So these are all clear examples of variables which the Green Book identifies may have uncertainties relating to them.
True.
Yes? Now, I'm going to come on and look at CD 597 now, which is the net economic impacts of the proposed Rosewood Hotel. Now, can I understand your role in this whole project? Have you been the project leader, and do you take for the documents that have been produced?
Yes, I take responsibility.
Have others in your team also been involved in the production of this document?
Others in the team have certainly worked. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So how much of the work have you directly done and how much have others done? Rough proportions?
On this one was virtually all me.
Right. Insofar as we've had two versions of CD 597, and that arose because of a position whereby in the first version of CD 597, the diversion of hotel rooms in Scheme 2, or Scheme 1, i.e. the larger one, was larger than the number of rooms of the proposed hotel. And if you compared the figures between the two proposals, one was 33,000 and the other was 66,000 for 20 rooms. Isn't that patently obvious to anybody with any economic expertise and used to running figures that these figures were clearly erroneous?
It clearly didn't strike me at the time.
So you don't think that having a transfer of numbers of this magnitude doubled for having 20 rooms, is that seriously? Are you seriously suggesting that is not an obvious error in the figures?
I guess I'm just trying to put it into the gross value added space and an employment space. So it didn't dawn on me.
Well, we're going to come and look at it in some detail, but these are the key inputs in relation to the netting off against which every other figure is derived. So it's the key input to the netting process, isn't it? There are the two key inputs to the netting process.
Certainly, yeah, absolutely.
Critical, and we'll come on and look at them. So in terms of your whatever quality checks you have, can we agree that in this instance they failed?
Yes, we used the wrong number.
Yeah. And obviously, it's an example of why transparency is important, in that it affords the reader an opportunity to test the underlying assumptions and to see whether they're accurate or not. Do we see that? If we hadn't been given the figures and we just had outputs, we would never have known that. So it's all about transparency, isn't it?
Agreed. Certainly, okay. Absolutely.
Now, I think for this, I'm probably just going to stick with the 127 hotel. So we'll need CD 597. And at various points, we might have to dip into CD 204, just so that it's easy and you have both documents to hand. perhaps if we have, we're going to section 2 of CD 597. On page 6, and if you could also have available CD 204 at page 25. And I just think it's probably helpful for me to understand how this has been built up as a complete programme, and so I'm just going to understand how this all fits together. So, would it be fair to say that the earlier panels, i.e. A to E, effectively deal with the proposal of the 127 hotel in its gross state?
Sorry, 80's in 204, is it?
We're in section 2.
Yep.
We have figure 3, which is the output tables.
Yep.
That essentially the panels are broken down into A to E reflect effectively the gross process of the 127 hotel, and the subsequent panels are the displacement effect. And then you deal with optimism bias and get an end conclusion. Is that correct?
Correct.
And in that top section, the key input of under 2022 is, because I'm going to be talking about this operational aspects, is going to be the key to this area of cross-examination. We get the 19.5 million GVA is the hotel, 127 hotel, under panel C.
Yes.
Because essentially on the operational side, panels A and B deal with the earlier construction phase and pre-opening phase. Yes?
Yeah. So it's the hotel plus its supply chain plus its wage consumption impacts.
And the approach of the compilation, and it has to be noted that that is GVA, not the turnover. You've done something to the figures that have been given to you by Urbanist to create that 19.5. Is that correct?
So I would have added employee compensation to the profit figure.
Yeah.
To get that.
And so those, and then you've done something to those figures to get a GVA. There's something goes on, some magic, doesn't it?
So that would be for when I said that was for the hotel. I would use multipliers produced by the Scottish Government. I'd use the input-output table to manipulate that to create supply chain multipliers and to create wage consumption multipliers.
Yeah. But they're not in this document, are they?
The multipliers?
No.
No, they're not. No.
No. But you've done an exercise that's used some sort of multipliers produced by the Scottish Government to take the raw data to get to the 19.5.
I've used the Scottish input-output table.
Yeah.
I've used lots of ONS and Scottish Government data to calculate the estimates.
But those calculations have been done by you privately, and the actual calculations have not been disclosed in a spreadsheet, have they?
So we haven't published a spreadsheet, no.
So they're not transparent, are they?
But if I was going to present the GDP, the operations about the hotel, then I would probably be showing the profits and the wages. So.
Yeah. So that's one of the limitations of undertaking a Green Book assessment, utilising confidential information, isn't it?
Yes, I would agree with that. Fair enough.
So in order to understand effectively the way in which that is built up, because we've got effectively two sets, we've got the 19.5 million and the 6.7 tax, that effectively how that's built up is it's the same approach as undertaken, or the detail of that is the equivalent of Section 5 of the 2017 Scheme 2 CD 204 calculation. Is that correct?
Yep.
So insofar as if we go to CD 204 and just understand how that's, because that's where the detail of that is built up, isn't it? Have you got section 5 of the 2000 CD204, which is page 25?
Section 5. Yep.
Because the figure of the 19.5 is made up of the direct impacts. Is that correct?
So no, that's not correct. So the 19.5 will be the direct, the indirect, and the induced.
Yes, but it includes the direct.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, and that's based on the whole turnover of the hotel, isn't it?
It's based on the profit and wages estimate
Of the whole hotel
of the hotel.
and all the services that it operates.
Yes.
Yeah. And the consequence of that is the indirect impacts, i.e. what it buys from the supply chain, is for the total extent of the operations of the hotel, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
so it would rely on estimates both of the value of their expenditure on inputs of goods and services, and it would rely on some data on what they're actually buying. So I align that to the industries they're purchasing from.
And is that a figure that you built up from the figures that you were given, or was it one that Urbanist provided to you?
The expenditure on goods?
Yes.
That would have come from Urbanist.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And then we get the induced impacts, and those are both at Edinburgh and Scotland level. Is that correct?
Yes, so for those, we would have taken some of the wage data from Urbanist, and we would have also estimated by following the supply chain which industries they procure from. We would use the ONS average salary and hours and earnings data, ASH data, to estimate the average salary of the people in the supply chain, to give me a wage figure to know how much they're going to spend and put in through the wage stimulants.
So we're trying to capture everything, but on that basis, that again, you're using your data to try and find equivalents that put in it. That's not a direct data produced by Urbanist Hotels. It derives from the data provided, but you're using, again, more magic to create that. Is that right?
I'm using ONS data from the annual survey of hours and earnings for the wage estimates.
Again, are the calculations relating to these incorporated in your reports?
I would... well, I don't know. We can have a look if you like.
Now, so that's the element that goes in to make up the 19.5 and that figure in 2022. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And then we have the additional tourism impacts, and that's the additional spend that the tourists that are staying at the hotel will generate. And that's dealt with in 5.4 of CD 204. And effectively what we have there is a breakdown of the spending pattern of Edinburgh tourists. Is that correct?
Yes, but please bear in mind those are their actual spending figures, and what I'm producing is
Yes.
gross value added. So, and tax,
So you have to do some more...
I sadly have to do some more magic. I'm
Yes, you
afraid.
do. And no doubt each of the separate elements of eating and drinking, shopping, culture and transport will have different multipliers to the jobs that are created as a consequence of the spend.
So it will depend on the estimates of the Scottish content.
Yeah.
And also which industries they're purchasing from. So if they're buying something from agriculture, the productivity may be different from if they were buying computers or something else.
Yeah. And insofar as the one thing you need to do in this table is that you have the accommodation cost, so therefore you've been able to work out all the other costs, but you've had to allocate on the food spending how much the residents of the hotel or the tourists were going to spend at the hotel. Is that correct? And do a breakdown there.
So, yeah, so there is an assumed split
Yeah.
between the hotel and outside.
And who helped you with that split?
I think I don't think it was an external party.
So that's one that you've done.
I think that's one we've done.
Okay, thank you. Would it be fair to say that the residents of Rosewood seem to enjoy their food and drink?
They're paying sort of several £100 for their for the hotel, so I'm sure they spend much more than the £99 average spend by that comes from the ONS International Passenger Survey. So yes, the number is higher relative to Mr. Average international person coming to Scotland.
And so that then produces a separate figure, which it combines to produce the 810 gross. Is that correct?
That's true. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if we could go back to the figure 3 and the subsequent analysis of the netting off process, and perhaps if we go back to page 6 of CD 597, please.
Sorry, could I just have that page number again in 597? Sorry.
Yeah, it's page 6. Now, if we look at the second section, this essentially is where you utilise information given to you by HVS, is that correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So just to understand that, what you've got there is in panel F, it's got the displacement in 2022 of 29,150 room nights, is that correct?
Yes, sorry, 29. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the calculation is that would be at £135 per night, producing a loss of revenue to those hotels of 3.9 million. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes. And again, some more magic goes on, and effectively that figure then comes down to 2.2 GVA. Is that correct?
It's just the statistics from the annual business survey,
Yeah.
which shows the relationship between gross value added and gross output for hotels.
And from that, you then say that I've now got a figure that's comparable with effectively the hotel on the first netting off process. Is that correct?
So that's our estimate of the amount that other hotels lose from the or customers that are cannibalised.
Because obviously the 2.2 then also has to have other things like the induced, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that then goes back to 3.9, and I presume a bit like Mr. Thompson's, that's an arithmetic coincidence rather than it automatically always being 3.9 to 3.9.
No, absolutely. So
Yes.
it would depend on the value of the multipliers.
Absolutely. Thank you. And so that produces a position whereby 20% of the gross expenditure is netted off on effectively what we call direct hotel.
So it's
Yeah.
netted off from the total generated by the operation of the hotel.
Yeah. And then panel G, because we all know that accommodation is directly related to tourist expenditure, that again you've used a similar 20% on panel G to take off from the tourist expenditure. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. That's how we get the figures over the page of 60 jobs. So roughly speaking, what we've ended up with is a 20% displacement. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Can I ask you, in economic terms, what do you understand by the term primary competitor?
It's not a term that I would have heard of primarily, but I would presume you mean competitors that directly compete with what we're talking about now, the hotel.
And what would a secondary competitor be?
To the extent that the customer might go somewhere else, I presume they're not a direct competitor.
And beyond secondary, what would you think?
I guess you could go as far as you want in terms of numbers, but the less they compete, the higher the number, I would presume. But it's not a term I would use.
But it must be a term that you're familiar with, that there's a concept of primary competitors in a competition field. Have you done competition work in any sense?
No, we don't do. Sorry, Oxford Economics doesn't do competition work.
Okay. Can I ask you to look at table 517, please, of document CD 053?
Oh, I've got it. Sorry, can you say again, the number again, please?
It's CD 53.
Okay.
Yes, if you've got CD 53, and could you go to page 49?
Yes.
Yeah. Do we see there, and obviously I'm not asking you detailed questions about the hotel operation, but there are some matters which I do need to raise with you subsequently. So I just want to understand with you, does and you should be presumably aware from having been given the figures, does Rosewood, or the potential hotel, I think we'll call it at the sites, we can either do the 127 or 147, does it include restaurants and lounges?
The financial numbers I would have been given would have included.
Yeah.
There would have been the profit of the hotel, the total hotel, absolutely.
Yeah. And does the proposed hotel, either of the appeal options, include a spa?
I was just given financial and employment figures. I didn't know what was included, to be honest.
Do you know if it has meeting rooms and meeting space and a ballroom? And the architects told us all about these. They don't know. No. Can we see, however, that the primary competitors all seem to have these particular facilities, with some of them having upwards of 4 restaurants and spas, meeting rooms and meeting space? Do we see that? They all appear to be characteristics that HVS have drawn out in relation to the context of what they describe as the primary competitors. Do we see that?
I can see your table, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And if we see over the page at 518, there's a table of the secondary competitors. Do we see that?
I do.
Yeah, thank you. Could I ask you to look at document APP 48, please?
Sorry.
CD.
Sorry, number 48.
Yes, please. And I want you to go to page 19 of that document, please. I presume that you've seen the HVS figures before, have you?
Yes, I've read. Yeah, absolutely.
Were you aware that HVS had submitted papers, which obviously we haven't seen because there were viability assessments submitted to the Council? Were you aware that a separate set of papers had been submitted to the Council in respect of both the first and second applications?
I'm aware they did a viability analysis, yes.
Were you aware, were you given copies of that viability analysis?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't know, to be honest.
Okay.
As in, I would have read some of HPS's analysis, but not all of it, if I was being honest.
Yes, but insofar as if we're wanting to test various scenarios, there is sufficient information and data produced by HVS, which is a complete alternative to scenario to the one that you've presented in your various reports, isn't there?
In terms of, so they, as I understood it, they forecasted the impact, the sort of revenues from a 107, 127, and 147 room hotel.
These are the same type of figures as you've been given by Urbanist, but prepared by HVS. They're an alternative assessment of what the hotel would likely to turn over and its potential profitability, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So it would have been perfectly possible to present an alternative set of results based on the HVS material, wouldn't it?
It would.
Yeah. Equally, before this inquiry, the HVS material that we have here is the only material that's been published. Do you accept that?
Yes.
Yes. So, in terms of its relevance, Table 5.1 in respect of the 127 hotel, under revenue, do we see that in the context of the accommodation, it only accounts for 58.7% of the turnover of the hotel?
50, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah. So, insofar as there's another over 40% of turnover to be found, can we agree that none of that has come into play in the context of assessing the value of the alternative hotels, which are the ones that are going to be impacted upon, because the only figures that we have are an accommodation figure?
That's true.
So would you accept that your study in that respect is deficient in respect of unaccounted 41% of the turnover of the proposed hotel?
So my estimate is includes, well, it does include food. It's not just accommodation.
Well, that's the whole point, is that you have done your assessment, the gross one for your hotel, on the total income of the hotel, but you've only netted off one element of the other hotel's incomes, which you're impacting upon, and that's the accommodation charge. Isn't that right?
Well, yeah. It's a yes and a no in the sense that we have taken off the tourist expenditure as well. So if they're spending money in other hotels and restaurants, it's included.
No, that's not an answer to my question. This is the direct hotel loss. And as you identified previously, if we were being fair about the total hotel loss, it should also include the losses that include the food and beverage, the spa, and other income of other hotels. That would be a direct loss.
I partly agree, I partly don't agree, in the sense that I haven't isolated for other hotels. The only bit for other hotels I isolate is the accommodation, is the number of.
Yes.
So, but I do include the tourism figures. So there's a loss of spending from the Edinburgh economy, some of which would be would go to hotels, some of which would go to restaurants, some of which would go to museums, etc.
Yeah, but you're apples and pears here. I'm above the line. Can we keep above the line on direct hotel expenditure? Because we've got these 2 points, haven't we? We've got the hotel expenditure, which I'm talking about, and we could go back to the tables and clarify exactly what we're talking about. And perhaps that would be useful. Can we go back to your... keep that open, and we'll go back and look at the table.
Can I just be quite certain which table we're going back to now?
Figure 3 on page 7 of CD 597.
Thank you.
Just to make sure that there's no ambiguity about this. In panel C under 2022, you have forecast 19.5 GVA for the proposed hotel in respect of the appeal. Is that correct? And
yes.
It includes the total income, the spa, it includes the food and beverages, it includes the income from meeting rooms, and it includes every aspect of the hotel income netted off in terms of profitability. Is that correct?
And the supply chain and the
everything.
And the wage consumption impacts, yes.
So the laundry of the spa robes is incorporated in your figures. Is that correct?
If they're whether it's in-house or outsourced.
Yeah. And when that 19.5 has to be considered against, in panel F, a 3.9, which only incorporates accommodation costs as set out from HVS.
That is true, but as I said, the tourism expenditures, the restaurants and the other spend on sort of other hotels, restaurants, other hotels' drinks will be in there too.
Yeah, but that works both.
That would be panel G.
Yeah, but that works both ways. We'll come on to that because there's a separate issue on that I'll come to. But can we at least agree that 41% of the hotel turnover has not been accounted for in displacement terms?
No, because the money that these people bring in is spent. I've included the tourism impacts.
No, that's separate because you've done the exercise. The tourist impacts that you gave on the downside was 20%. Yes?
Yes.
So that was related to the accommodation level above. So if I were being fair to the displacement, I have to calculate the 3.9 with all the other displacement that goes in, including the spa displacement, the food displacement, and the restaurant displacement and drink from the other hotels. So that, as you've identified, is an important component part of the Rosewood expenditure, is from their residents and other people.
So some of that would be in panel G, though, wouldn't it? So yes, you're correct insofar as I don't isolate out the 1.7, the proportion of the food spend, the drink spend that goes to other hotels.
You're mixing and matching your expenditure here. Can we just deal with this absolutely squarely? In terms of panel C, your own 19.5, it incorporates accommodation. It's got everything in it, okay? Absolutely everything in it. Yes?
Yes.
And in terms of food expenditure, what you did was do an allocation between that which you captured and that which escaped to go elsewhere. And one's within the hotel figures and the other's outside the hotel figures. Yes?
Well, no, I would have used the profits data and the wages data that was given. So there would have been presumably an assumption in the data I was given about the hotel, about how much money they were making out of restaurants, spas, and all the other stuff.
So that's all in your data under panel C.
Correct.
But what's not captured under panel C is that some of your guests go off and eat elsewhere as tourist expenditure. And you identify a proportion of that that goes into panel D, but not all of it. Yes?
What do you mean by not all of it? Sorry, I'm not.
Well, you have done a breakdown. You've got figures for a breakdown of percentages of how tourists spend the money. They've got a food expenditure. You've extracted, and I think the figure is something like, is it 4.6 out of 7 or something that you've kept at the hotel? The rest obviously goes out to be spent elsewhere. That's your breakdown.
So absolutely. So that's how much. So the money they spend, the expenditure they make at other hotels would be part of panel D.
Yeah, or restaurants or wherever.
Or museums.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But the fundamental point is that if I were doing a fair comparison of panel F, it should have the total figure in, and that includes the spa expenditure, the food and beverage expenditure, the events expenditure, just as you've done for Rosewood, or not Rosewood, just let's call it the anonymous hotel that might occupy the 127-bedroom hotel.
So yes, well, yes. So I would have moved some of the 1.7 into the 3.9. To be fair to you.
That's not an acceptable answer, Mr. Logan, because it's a percentage. Your percentage for panel G is a direct percentage. You said it was 20% because the top figure, 3.9, was 20% of 19.5. So if I increase the 3.9 to account for the 41% of hotel expenditure that's not been accounted for, it will follow through that percentage will change, and up the tourist impact will go as well, because it's directly related. Remember, 3.9 is 20% of 19.5. Is that correct?
Yes.
You then said because it's got a 20% displacement, that would follow through also into the tourism, so that would be 20%. Yes?
Yes.
So if I increase 3.9 with the other income that the hotels might have displaced from them, that will increase the original 20% figure to a higher figure, won't it?
No, I just think we're moving money between GDP.
No, we are not
F
moving
and
money
G.
between.
So I wonder if the witness can finish his answer, please, on what clearly is a matter of dispute between the two parties here.
Yes, let him finish and then come back.
So I think we're just moving. I completely agree. I have not isolated the loss of food of others if they go to other spas from my panel G, maximum tourist expenditure. But that money is in there in the 1.7, and I could add that, and I would lower the total figure, the 3.9, the 1.7 wouldn't change.
Well, let's just... Hotel A is a direct competitor of your proposed hotel. At the current time, Hotel A is going to be impacted upon. Yes?
If you tell me so.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Because that's what it says. At the current time, you've said that the only thing you're going to take from Hotel A is an accommodation cost and panel F. Yes?
Yes.
Now, Hotel A, if they had the guest, is likely to also capture its spa, food, and other event expenditure, isn't it?
Yes.
So, if Hotel A expenditure is being shifted to the new hotel, it's not just the accommodation cost of Hotel A that has to be taken into account, it's the whole displacement of income, isn't it?
Yes, but that is surely in panel G.
Yes, it goes into panel F. No, it's not in panel G. Ignore panel G completely at the moment, if you may. We'll come back to it and I'll give you an opportunity. If we were building this model correctly, panel F would have more than accommodation cost in it, wouldn't it? Because that's the displacement. The displacement isn't just an accommodation cost, is it?
I agree with that.
Yeah. And given that the Rosewood Hotel, or the anonymous hotel that occupies the appeal site, has facilities of a spa, a restaurant, and meeting rooms, that Hotel A is also going to face competition in respect to those other elements not just the accommodation.
Yes.
And that, if it comes from the hotel directly, should properly be reflected in panel F, if we're comparing it like for like.
Yes.
Yeah. So once we've got panel F uplifted to a figure that reflects the full displacement from hotel A, that effectively the 3.9 will increase, will it not?
It will.
Yeah. And if the 3.9 increases, that the percentage figure against the 19.5 will increase, and that in turn will increase the tourist displacement as well, because that is how this has been calculated.
But it's just driven off the price of the hotel and the number of hotels.
So, can we agree that ignoring the direct impacts on other hotels has been restricted to accommodation costs, and that it is clear that in the context of a luxury hotel, that it will also compete a range across another market sectors, including food and drink, spas, etc., which can either be in relation to guests staying at the hotel or competing for people to come to the hotel itself. Is that correct?
No,
because that's what you've included.
The spending's in panel G.
Okay. But first off, can we go back to first principles again? The figure of 19.5 includes, can we agree, 1, the accommodation costs of the proposed hotel, the accommodation income from the proposed hotel at the appeal site, yes?
Yes.
It includes, effectively, all the spa income, as we've identified in that figure.
Yes.
All the income associated with food and drink.
Yes.
And all events and meeting rooms.
Yes.
So, can we call that the direct hotel income, which you've then done all your things with the people and everything else?
Yep.
So if we were doing a like-for-like comparison of what happens in a competitive environment, can we agree that in relation to panel F, you have only accounted for one element of the loss of hotel profit in relation to displacement? Is that correct? It's only the accommodation.
Yes, so all I've done is the room rate times the number of people.
Yeah. Do we agree that those guests will also utilise and spend money in the hotel if they've been staying there?
Yes.
Now, that's one element of the additional displacement, isn't it? The people that would use the spa, the restaurant, etc., which you've identified and allocated within the tourist spend, haven't you?
Yes.
So, if we're doing the correct comparison, panel F should be a full provision of essentially hotel impact, and that is an error in the whole methodology of this particular assessment.
I certainly could have presented it differently. It's not so it could be more consistent with. Yeah, it's inconsistent with panel C and panel F. Panel F isn't, as you say, the whole hotel, because some of it's in panel G.
Well, that's not actually accurate, because what that panel G is only the tourist spend of the people that you've actually displaced, isn't it? That's what you're trying to say, is that this tourist spend would have occurred anyway from those residents, isn't it? So it's directly related to only the accommodation cost, isn't it?
So yes, it comes from the number of people, number of rooms.
Yeah. So that's the precise point, is that even the tourist spend is directly related to that, and what you have done is effectively failed to properly account for panel F.
So I could reorganise it, certainly, as
No,
I move some of panel G into panel F.
No, I think the fundamental point that we're still struggling with, Mr. Logan, is this. Is panel F, or panel G, and panel D are effectively spends out with the hotel. Isn't that correct?
Spend outside of the hotel.
Yes. So what that is displacing is the 1.7 million of spend from outside the hotel. It's got nothing to do with expenditure within the hotel, has it?
So the 1.7 displaces the 8.3.
Yes, because it's to do with this. 1.7, which is the tourism expenditure, is effectively expenditure which is spent outside the hotel. That's what we're dealing with in the tourist expenditure, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's got nothing to do with expenditure that would have been spent in the hotel, because that's dealt with effectively in your case, panel C, and omitted in panel F in respect of the displacement.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
So fine.
Yeah. So effectively, now that we have that agreement, panel F should include the displacement from all the expenditure within the hotel, i.e. the hotel that's being impacted upon. It should be the total impact on the hotels.
If it's to be consistent with panel
Yeah.
C.
Yeah. And as we know, in the context of the HVS report, which is the only public data, that comprises 41% of the turnover of the proposed hotel.
Well, I didn't use the HPS numbers at the time, but
Sorry, the position that we have as the only published data that we have to this inquiry is that the proposed hotel, 41% of its turnover would be made up of income that was not accommodation related. And as I think we've now agreed, panel F only includes accommodation. Therefore, there's another 41% of income that the proposed hotel will have that has to be accounted for in potential displacement.
to be consistent with panel C, yes. Absolutely.
Now, again, I'm not going to ask you at this stage for a detailed critique of HVS with you, but I do want to take you to certain figures and put to you, as an economist, having regard to the Green Book, certain matters. So if you could have CD 598 available, please. Now, could I ask you to look at section 5, which is on page 15, please. Can we see Exhibit E incorporates annual census growth, which is a prediction?
Yep.
Can we see occupancy growth, again, which is a prediction?
Yes.
And do we see annual demand growth, which again is a prediction?
Yes.
Now, there may well be relationships between these various predictions, but can we agree that these may well involve making forecasts to which there is undoubted uncertainty?
The forecast relates to the second half of the table. Yes. Yes.
And insofar as a Green Book analysis is concerned, it would advocate the use where of such data, that there should be a proper sensitivity analysis undertaken of these matters to test various assumptions. Is that correct?
Yes.
again, I take it that you have had regard to this document and that you've reviewed it.
No, absolutely. I've
Yeah.
got this one. Yeah.
Do you know Section 6 reasonably well, then? Yeah.
Yes, go on.
Now, being an economist with experience, could I ask you to look at Exhibit K, please? And I just want your, because we've been through earlier in your cross-examination, the primary and secondary competitors. This now is extended, and that was just over the 3,000 mark of hotel rooms. As you can see now, the census room totals have been enlarged to 8,749. Just as an economist, and having regard to those primary and secondary competitors, do you think realistically that it's fair that the displacement would be equally shared by every activity? So that would be an appropriate point to break if that's suitable. Thank you.
Yes, that's fine. Thank you. Can you give us an idea of how much more time you need after lunch? Not 10 minutes, obviously.
Probably 25 minutes to half an hour, I'd have thought.
Okay. Okay, we'll break now until 10 till 2. Thank you.
So I simply pause to note I don't think Mr McIntosh is in the room, but whether
begging
that's
his pardon.
intentional by him or not, I don't know. His jacket may be, so maybe that's a stand-in, I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Shall we give him a moment? Apologies, Mr. McIntosh. I started without you.
Well, the camera's not on me.
It's new. Mr. Innes, when you're ready.
Yes. Mr. Logan, could we perhaps move on and look at the tourist expenditure? And if I could start off looking, first of all, at CD 204, please, page 27. Have you got that, Mr. Yes. In looking at that particular matter, can we see that effectively you have done effectively the spending pattern from ETAG? Is that correct? Yes. And the starting point of this analysis is the accommodation cost at 11.6. Is that correct? Yes. And from that you derive percentages based on a pattern of spending. Is that correct? And insofar as the pattern of spending is concerned, we see percentages applied against the accommodation cost, isn't it? Yes. Now, insofar as eating and drinking was concerned, as part of the proposal you had to work out, and you said you made that allocation, can we agree that in relation to what ultimately ends up being panel D, it's the stuff on the far right-hand column, the 2.8, the 5.1, the 3.1 and the 1.5? Was effectively that the tourism input to panel D is directly derived, and that's from figure 3 in the CD 597, is directly derived from the far right-hand column in figure 9. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the stuff outside the hotel.
And in particular, the 4.3 of the eating and drinking is incorporated in the overall hotel turnover. Is that correct? Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. And insofar as you allocate 20% of the impact or net on tourism, that's 20% of the right-hand column, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. And that does not include the eating and drinking for internally within the hotel. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you. Now, insofar as the data is derived from a source, could you have document CD 535 available, please?
Ready?
Yes, have you got that?
Yes.
And I don't think my copy has page numbers. But if I go about 4 pages in, I get the expenditure per person per day. It's in section 2, Edinburgh Visitor Profile.
Okay. You can offer me something else. Is it the starts with a shopping basket infographic?
Mine's got a little house, I think. It's the next page.
Okay. Then I'm with.
Is that the data source for the expenditure split on the tourism?
I'm afraid I can't tell you. As in, I didn't do this bit, but I guess I am responsible for it, but I can't authoritatively say yes or no.
Okay. Have you got a calculator with you?
Yes.
Do you want to just have a quick check that the figures tally with those set out in figure 9?
Sorry, excuse me. The food one isn't the same. Eating and drinking isn't the same.
It's the same.
Isn't the same.
What's the sum you're doing?
It's 22.9 in the, sorry. The knife and fork, 22.9,
Yes, times.
divided by 92.2.
Divided by.
Is that where you want to go? Shares aren't the same, I don't think. Yeah, that's 22 versus 24. But
22.90 divided by 90...
92.2 gives you...
24.8, isn't it? 0.248?
Yeah.
So what's happened is the numbers have just been slightly rounded to make it easier, isn't that the case?
I don't know, I'm afraid.
Equally, but just to be clear, this is the entire basis of the allocation of tourist spend in relation to this study, is it not?
I don't know whether it's this paper or another paper.
And if it were this paper, the study's been undertaken on tourists who are on average spending £7.85 in their accommodation. Is that correct?
Yes.
And effectively what's been undertaken across this whole exercise is that these spending splits would apply across all hotel sectors. Is that correct?
On the data source it uses, yeah.
And in a Green Book analysis situation, we would be treating this probably with some caution, would we not?
Yes, insofar as clearly these people spend £92.20 per day, and the ones we're talking about are spending several £100s on their accommodation alone per night.
And insofar as the position of the relative position of your hotel vis-à-vis the tourist that's displaced is the figure produced by HVS is £135 on average of the person that's displaced, the tourist that's displaced. And we don't actually have a figure for the proposed hotel apart from I think if we went back to that table that have in the HVS report, because that does have a figure. So if you go to APP 48, table 5.51, do we see there that the average rate for the 127 hotel in table 5.1 is £370.68.
Yes,
yeah.
I see that.
So effectively, every time a tourist who's coming to Edinburgh anyway is displaced from another hotel to Roseweed, we're talking about the displacement factor, i.e. one of the people that HVS identifies as being displaced, that effectively their tourist expenditure increases by a magnitude of something like 2.7, merely because they are going to stay at a more expensive hotel.
So I've certainly scaled the numbers up, yeah, by that amount.
Yeah. So that's
whether the ratio is.
That's the scenario, isn't it?
So that's true, yes.
One of the things that obviously as economists you have to do is presumably you also have to apply a bit of common sense. The same tourists coming to the same destination, and merely because they're choosing one hotel over the other, they're going to spend 2.7 times as much elsewhere outside the hotel. Seems to be, I would suggest, a stretch too far. No?
Well, I guess we don't know, do we, in the sense that I can imagine if I was spending £300-something a night, then I might well buy far more expensive wine or far more expensive food than I would be if I was paying £32 a night.
I'd spent so much in the hotel room. I was sitting in the hotel room with a bottle of wine from down the road and a carry-out. But it may have a slight joke, but that is a product of a model, isn't it? And that's one of the issues, is that when you use these economic models, there has to be an element of a degree of caution applied, because this may be the consequent result.
I would agree that with all data, one should apply some caution.
And equally, insofar as essentially what I would acknowledge that the extent to which the new hotel completely brought new people to Edinburgh, that would be entirely new spend, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Again, are you able to point to anywhere in the appellant's evidence that figures for that are provided?
As in figures on the proportion of new people? Yes. No, we don't know that. I don't think it can be known.
Now, if we take the information on the available information, we can contrast Table 5.1. Do we see 5.1? Because it actually provides us with an occupancy rate. Do we see that? In 2024, the 127-bedroom hotels are predicted to be occupied rooms as 34,002 for the year. Do you see that?
Yes.
And if we were using the HVS displacement figure, it would produce, it says it's taking, and for the purposes of this assumption, just assume it's continuing to take 29,152 residents from existing hotels to the Rosewood. That's the impact figure. Room nights lost from existing hotels, 29,152. Occupancy of rooms, 34,000. Do we see that?
So I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Certainly, I'm not
page.
following the table, and I'm not sure that the witness is following the tables either.
Okay.
I'm afraid
I'll take it
not
slow.
give
I'll
the
take it slow.
references.
Yeah, I don't want there to be any confusion on matters.
I wonder perhaps if you could start this little
Right.
section again. Table 5.1, and please identify which document.
Can we? Okay, absolutely. If we look at APP 48, Table 5.1, it has a predicted occupancy for the 127 hotel of 34,002. Do we see that? Have you got that figure, Mr. Lucan? Yeah, you've got that figure. And in the cannibalisation of demand, CD 598,
Bear with me.
under section 6, do we see the prediction from HVS that the rooms removed from existing hotels would be 29,152? That's on Exhibit K on page 20.
Yep.
Yes? Do we see that?
Yes.
So if we use those two figures, that would mean that eventually, on that assumption, that 4,850 of the 34,000 would be new to Edinburgh. Is that correct? We take the 34,000 and take away 29,152, and that gives you a figure of 4,850. Is that right?
Sorry, bear with me.
So I'm sorry to be slower about this, but document 598, was it page 20 we should be looking at?
19.
598, page 20, Exhibit K, rooms nights lost, 29,152.
So as I understand room nights lost, and clearly I'm not the author of the document, that would be people who are displaced, as in would have been coming anyway.
Yes, that's the precise point. So 29,152 night rooms get transferred from an existing hotel to the new hotel. Yes?
Yep.
And if the existing hotel had the occupancy predicted by HVS of 34,000 and 002 rooms in that year, we would end up with the difference being 4,850.
Assuming your maths correct, yeah.
Yeah. And that would mean that 14% of the hotel residents would effectively have been attracted to Edinburgh by the new hotel.
assuming your maths is
Yeah.
correct.
We could do the same exercise again, but we also have the figures for the larger hotel, essentially the 147, and in that context, the figure that's in Table 5.1 would be 38,568. And in terms of the...
Sorry, can you slow down? 147 is the 38568.
Yeah, 38568 from Table 5.1 of APP 48, page 19. And in terms of the Section 7 of CD 598, provides the captured rooms quantified, and that's 33,667 in Exhibit O on page 23.
Yeah.
And that would result in 4,901 being the net position of new. And as the hotels got bigger, effectively the net figure of people attracted to Edinburgh would reduce to 13% in terms of the overall total.
If your maths are right.
Yeah. And that wouldn't be surprising, is it? Because there'll be a certain element that may be attracted by a particular brand, and just because it's slightly bigger, that's not going to dramatically increase the attraction of the hotel to that brand loyalty, is it? So that probably makes sense, doesn't it?
I'm not a hotel expert, but it seems sensible to someone who isn't a hotel expert.
Now, just a couple of final matters, Mr. Logan. In terms of what we're trying to do, can we agree that the impact on individual hotels arising from this proposal is not a matter which is addressed effectively in your impact report? Because what we're looking at is the impact of the effectively the proposals on the economy. Is that more what you're trying to achieve?
Yeah, very much so. So I'm talking about employment, GVA and tax. I'm not talking about whether the hotels go bankrupt.
Yeah. And so insofar as there may be growth which offsets impacts at the hotel, that's a matter that's a hotel impact issue, not a matter for your assessment, is it?
I'm only discussing employment, GVA and
Yeah.
tax base.
And insofar as the hotel continues to operate and apply competitive pressures to other hotels, it will continue to cannibalise trade, which those existing hotels might otherwise have attracted. Is that not correct?
Yes, but obviously the demand backdrop changes, doesn't it? Over time, there'll be, I think, the HVS forecasts show an increase in demand, so it won't be static.
Yes, but that's the whole point. HVS forecast increase in demand, and as we've discussed, the Green Book might well say we should have caution on over-optimistic assessments of increasing demand, and we should perhaps face the situation where indeed there might be a fall in demand just as this hotel comes into operation, and there may be very real reasons for that, as there's an increase in supply. That could well happen, couldn't it?
Well, I suggest you take that with HVS. What underpins their forecast?
Now, I know Mr. Steele wants me to desperately go to Parker Cure, but I want to actually ask you about, as an economist, and you're giving an indication to decision makers about a particular project. Would you not be trying to put the project in the context of the relevant economic indicators or markets that are relevant? Is that not the key from an economic perspective, as opposed to trying to compare and contrast with different types of project?
I would try to make the. Hopefully, I'd try and evaluate both the qualitative and the quantitative.
Because if you are right that this is of national importance in terms of its scale of economic importance, there seem to be a lot of very nationally important businesses in Edinburgh. Is that not the case?
Well, as you know from the papers, I've compared to two previous sets of reporters, and sorry, may I look at my report? That's all right. I've forgotten what the other comparison is to. And to the size of some other sectors, such as sort of golf, aquaculture, and to illustrate the importance of the hotel.
Insofar you've carried out comparisons, have you done an evaluation of the extent to which Scotland is currently served by any other national tennis centres to see whether the particular proposals were utterly unique?
I can't claim to be a tennis centre expert.
And equally, how blessed is Scotland with film studios of the scale that you referred to?
Again, I can't claim to be a film centre expert.
Thank you, Mr. Logan. I've got no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Innes. Mr. Steele.
Thank you. Just a couple of matters, Mr. Logan, very briefly. Could I take you, please, back to document CD 598, if you can find it in that morass of papers.
Yeah, thank you. So I have it.
Could you go to page... Sorry. Could you go to page 20, which you were asked about? And figures were put to you from Exhibit K, as I understood it. Do you remember that, Mr. Logan?
Sorry, page 20. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I wonder, however, would you like to read out what the next two paragraphs actually say about the relevance of Exhibit K?
In reality, however, the introduction of this world-class hotel will induce additional room night demand over and above what we have projected here, as well as the increase in the overall segment average rate tone, so a monetary loss may be negligible or non-existent. This argument is outlined in Exhibit L, where we have applied a small 5% premium to the average rate adopted in Exhibit K to reflect the improved average rate tone. We can then estimate the financial impact in monetary terms on each average hotel room's revenue alone in an improved market. This is shown in Exhibit L below, demonstrating that despite a loss of room nights to the new hotel, the average property will benefit by $95,812 in room revenue during the year.
Now, I realise, of course, this will be Mr. Kett's evidence shortly, but given what the two paragraphs actually say, do you think it's fair or unfair to rely upon a figure from Exhibit K in isolation?
No, I don't think it's fair. I think that perhaps we should consider everything here.
Thank you. Just one further matter, please. Great reliance has been placed in cross-examination on the Green Book. Could you have that before you, which is the Trust's document number 9? And could you look, please, at the preface, which is at Roman numeral 5? And could you tell us as briefly as possible to who or what departments or what sector of business does this advice actually apply?
It refers to public sector bodies investment.
And does it expressly say this? The Green Book therefore constitutes binding guidance for departments and executive agencies. Is that what's said at the end of the third paragraph?
Yes, that's said there at the end of the third paragraph.
Yeah, thank you. Well, in these circumstances, can you tell us what reliance we should place on advice to government departments, which one can well understand should call for openness and transparency? Do you think it has the same application to the private sector where there are elements of commercial confidentiality?
I agree that sort of one would want, given we're all taxpayers, I would want more transparency about the public sector.
Thank you. No further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steele. Thank you, Mr. Logan.
Perhaps have a few minutes, if we can, just to swap over witnesses and
Indeed,
tidy up documents, or perhaps 5 or 10,
Mr.
whatever
Kett
you
next,
think.
is it, Mr. Steele?
Mr. Kett, good afternoon to you. Could I refer you to your precognition? We obviously have your inquiry report and precognition. Could I take you straight to your precognition? And could you please go to paragraph 1, section 1, please?
You'd like me to read it?
Yes, please.
Just the first paragraph?
If you start with the first paragraph,
Sure.
yes.
My name is Russell Kett. Since 2012, I have been chairman of the London office of HVS, the leading global specialist hotel valuation, consulting, asset management and brokerage firm, which I joined as a director in 1995, becoming managing director in 1996.
If you just continue, please.
I received a Lifetime Achievement Award from HOSPA, the Hospitality Professionals Association, in 2011, and received the Hall of Fame Lifetime Achievement Award at the Hot.E Hotel Investment Conference in London in September 2017. I'm a member of the International Hotel Investment Council. My firm's analysis relating to the proposed Rosewood Hotel Edinburgh demonstrates that I consider the proposed 127-room scheme to be economically feasible. However, the 147-room scheme would be preferable commercially, and there would be a greater margin of safety.
And if you can take paragraphs 4 and 5 as read and go to paragraph 6, please.
With specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2, points 1 and 3, I consider that the net economic benefits of the two schemes as outlined in my firm's analyses and by the analysis carried out by Andy Logan of Oxford Economics are achievable, and their contributions to sustainable economic growth are valuable and sustainable. The two schemes are of national importance. With specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2, points 1 and 3, it is my view that bringing the former Royal High School back into sustainable use as a world-class luxury hotel would specifically address the current priorities of the Edinburgh Tourism Action Group, which is of greatest regional importance. With specific reference to procedure notice on inquiry session 2.2, I concur with the view of Mark Finney of Colliers and do not consider that the proposed schemes and their resultant net economic impacts could be achieved in another way or on another site. In my analyses, I've illustrated that the star classification of hotels is useful as a broad guide, and efforts continue to harmonise these country-specific systems through the Hotel Stars Union by HOTREC. Until a more comprehensive system is in place, luxury hotels are differentiated from five-star hotels through the higher standards of service employed, intimate property functionality, and sumptuous design with specialist management capable of providing services to more demanding guests who also seek privacy, security, and quiet enjoyment. Where these qualities are evident, guests have a higher propensity to pay more for their stay. To be successful, luxury hotels require distinctive buildings and memorable settings in proximity to key demand generators to complete the guest experience. In return, luxury operators approach hotel management artistically, with a sense of purpose and attention to detail that is not found in lower hotel categories. As custodians of the properties they operate from, owners of luxury hotels take a commercial view to optimizing revenue streams outside of the rooms division, which requires the personalized engagement of the local community and reinvestment in the fabric of the property to sustain the value of the offer. In my firm's 2015 study, 4 European markets were profiled. The analysis showed that Edinburgh's premium hotel market accounts for 27%. This is in line with the other 4 hotel markets profiled, although the composition of premium hotels in these locations is arguably better. We would argue that the Sheraton Grand, the Corvus, Radisson Collection, and the Waldorf Astoria hotels are not luxury hotels, and so the resulting proportions suggest that Edinburgh has the capacity to support additional luxury hotel inventory beyond the Balmoral Hotel. In profiling Scotland's luxury hotel provision, I consider that apart from the premium-positioned Waldorf Astoria and Balmoral hotels, which are compromised because of their respective rooms inventories and settings, no recognised modern international luxury hotel brands are present in Edinburgh, and there are few, if any, independent hotels of a special nature compared to elsewhere in Europe. This is perceived by some, including Savills in their 2017 research paper, Edinburgh, a Global City in Demand, as compromising Edinburgh's international competitiveness. With specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2, points 1 and 3, the establishment of high-profile, modern luxury hotel operator within an historic property such as the former Royal High School, which is capable of inducing luxury demand from the widest range of international source markets, is of national importance. This is due to a luxury operator's global distribution network, coupled with the strength of substantial multinational marketing systems that generate greater visibility of the country in which the hotel is located. This also improves the appeal of the local market in which the hotel is situated, and so this is also of regional importance. HVS was asked to consider the feasibility of a proposed luxury hotel converted from the vacant former Royal High School building. We therefore considered a range of different options in order to identify a positive outcome for a typical developer, subject to third-party investment requirements. These comprised a 107-room scenario at the smallest scale, to 127 rooms at the midpoint, and a 147-room scenario at the upper end of what may be possible at the property. My valuation conclusions confirmed that 1. A 107-room scheme is unfeasible. 2. The 127-room scheme is feasible. But 3. The 147-room scheme is more commercial and offers a greater margin of safety than the 127-room scheme. The return on investment, ROI, on the 107-room scheme was found to be below the accepted threshold, whilst the 127-room was at the threshold and the 147-room scheme was more favourable. My firm's analysis has been reviewed by Mark Finney, Head of Hotels and Resorts Consulting at Colliers International, and by PKF Hotel Experts GmbH on behalf of the City of Edinburgh Council. Both Mr. Finney of Colliers International and PKF Hotel Experts GmbH endorse my analyses and valuation conclusions. With regard to the potential for the cannibalisation of demand, with specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2.3, whether the economic benefits of the establishment of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at the former Royal High School would be reduced elsewhere, HVS were asked to comment on the potential impact of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at the former Royal High School on the existing Edinburgh hotel market because of the perceived potential for the cannibalisation or displacement of demand. On 19th of December 2017, the Scotsman featured an article that discussed the 2017 research paper produced by Savills, Edinburgh, a Global City in Demand, which concluded that Edinburgh is a comparatively small city, but it is growing, and with the demand for homes, offices and hotels putting pressure on limited space, it is time to expand its horizons to establish itself fully as a global city. The research paper highlights that expansion and infrastructure investment are required, and the city's booming tourist market is not yet fully accommodated. Savills identified a pipeline of 2,400 hotel rooms, including those at the former Royal High School, to be developed by 2020. The impact of a 127 or a 147-room hotel on the whole Edinburgh market is too small to quantify with any accuracy. And so the pipeline of 2,400 hotel rooms identified by Savills is a useful starting point in an overview of the potential impact of new supply on the existing Edinburgh hotel market. We've demonstrated in our analysis that if we increase the market-wide census room inventory by 2,400 rooms until 2020 and adopt a sustainable annual demand growth rate of 3.5% instead of the 5.7% seen in the period of 2012 to 2016, then market-wide occupancy would decrease by 2.5 percentage points by 2020. If then new supply ceased and demand growth continued at the same rate of 3.5% per annum, market-wide occupancy for 2021 would immediately return to a high of 82.6%, still the level of a balanced market in equilibrium. If future growth was limited to only 3% per annum, then, all other things being equal, market-wide occupancy would return to a still respectable 80.6% in 2021. In addressing the more manageable question of the impact of the proposed Rosewood Edinburgh at the former Royal High School on the existing Edinburgh full-service hotel market in isolation, we've compared the anticipated performance of the market with and without the 127-room scheme. An aggregate occupancy of 79.9% without the proposed 127-room Rosewood Edinburgh compares to an aggregate occupancy of 78.7% with the proposed Rosewood Edinburgh, which is the equivalent of 29,152 room nights annually across the competitive full-service hotel market, or a potential loss of £29,370 in rooms revenue alone per existing competitive property on an averaged basis. We then illustrated that despite a loss of room nights to the new 127-room hotel, the average property in the competitive market may actually benefit by £95,812 in rooms revenue alone, with only a small 5% average rate premium attributable to the introduction of a new luxury hotel that would lift the overall market-wide tone. We have also compared the anticipated performance of the market with and without the 147-room scheme. an aggregate occupancy of 79.9% without the proposed Rosewood Edinburgh compares to an aggregate occupancy of 78.6% with the proposed Rosewood Edinburgh, which is the equivalent of 33,667 room nights annually across the full-service hotel market, or a potential loss of £33,918 in rooms revenue alone per existing property on an average basis. Similarly, we have illustrated that despite a loss of room nights to the new 147-room hotel, the average property in the full-service market may actually benefit by £90,752 in rooms revenue alone, with the 5% average daily rate premium. We consider that the concentration of world-renowned hotel brands across Edinburgh city centre is likely to create sufficient additional demand to offset any potential occupancy decline due to the opening of the proposed Rosewood Hotel at the former Royal High School. With specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2.3 on the lifetime of the impacts and any risk to the predicted outcomes, I therefore consider that any potential negative impact of the development of the proposed Rosewood Edinburgh at the former Royal High School on the existing Edinburgh full-service hotel market would be limited and short-lived. Furthermore, I have argued that an accompanying average daily rate premium would offset any potential occupancy decline. I therefore consider that the risk that the predicted outcomes outlined in my analysis on this issue do not occur is low. As far as Edinburgh 2020, the Edinburgh Tourism Strategy, the CEC itself now recognises that the city's hotel offering is weighted towards budget hotel chains, the city's two largest providers of hotel bedrooms, Premier Inn and Travelodge, together account for over a quarter of hotel bedrooms in Edinburgh, and that this has been a key driver of the increasing visitation to the city that is also spoiling Edinburgh residents' experience. Whilst this budget hotel supply means that Edinburgh is a relatively affordable destination by European standards, this is reducing the ability of the city to attract high-spending visitors, which runs contrary to the strategic priority set by the Edinburgh Tourism Action Group of attracting less volume and more high-spend visitors. Furthermore, the ability of the budget brands to charge very high room rates that are as much as some five-star hotel rates in high-demand periods, such as during the festival and other seasonal events, including Hogmanay, makes Edinburgh less attractive than other European cities because it offers visitors poor value. The city's tourism strategy, Edinburgh 2020, the Edinburgh Tourism Strategy, was developed by the ETAG. The ETAG is made up of public and private sector industry stakeholders, comprising the CEC, Scottish Enterprise, Marketing Edinburgh, Visit Scotland, Visit Britain, Scottish Development International, and the Scottish Tourism Alliance. This strategy aims to increase the value of tourism to
Perhaps we can just take that quote as read. Mr. Ketton, go on to paragraph 35, please.
Sustainable tourism growth is also critical to maintaining the city's UNESCO World Heritage status. Sustainability forms part of the strategy which describes economic sustainability, social sustainability, and environmental sustainability. This aligns with the United National World Tourism Organization definition of sustainable tourism management as tourism that takes full account of its current and future economic, social, and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, the environment, and host communities. The strategy also states that protecting Edinburgh's cultural and heritage assets and the city's attractiveness as a major visitor destination requires a level of sustainable investment beyond that which the CEC can contribute on its own. The Edinburgh 2020 Strategy Implementation Group, who oversee the implementation of the strategy, have observed that although visitor volume has grown, visitor density, the ratio of visitors to permanent residents in Edinburgh at 8:1, remains lower than cities such as Venice, 113:1, Barcelona, 20:1, or Amsterdam, 19:1, where measures have been introduced to cap visitor numbers. And whilst the growing number of visitors to Edinburgh brings benefits to the city economy, the effective management of this success is required to ensure that visitor numbers do not reach those of other cities where the impact has been damaging. Managing success was the main theme of ETAG's 2018 conference in February of this year, where the group prioritised increased visitor spend rather than simply volume growth, prioritising independent travellers rather than group travel, generating a higher spend per head, investing in staff development and training, and supporting and encouraging the use of new technology and innovation to improve visitor management, including dynamic pricing and new products and services. With reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2.1, it is my view, therefore, that the development of high-end hotels is implicitly not acknowledged as being a core aim of this strategy, and bringing the former Royal High School back into sustainable use as a world-class luxury hotel that encourages public interaction with a historic property and its immediate environment would specifically address the key initiatives of the ETAG and therefore be of national and regional importance. I've reviewed the inquiry statements received in accordance with the procedure notice dated 20th of April 2018. Ms. Addison fails to understand that luxury hotels rely on high levels of personal service to deliver the quality of experience for which guests are paying a premium. The Missoni Hotel did not fail. The property was subject to being rebranded within an international hotel group. Missoni as a hotel brand did not succeed because of differences in focus between the licensor fashion brand and the operator, as well as the limitations of the property as a high-end hotel that included small rooms, a noisy situation, an arrangement over a high street bank. I disagree with Mr. Black's opinion that the hotel market offers generally poor career prospects available in the low to medium levels of the hotel industry. Talented and hard-working candidates usually enjoy reasonable career prospects, and the hotel industry is no different. All candidates enjoy better career prospects working in industries comprised of large and multinational organizations, which offer a greater volume and range of positions within and outside of the current place of work. Excuse me. I've had sight of a review of my firm's analysis carried out by PKF Hotel Experts GmbH on behalf of the City of Edinburgh Council, dated the 11th of May 2017. This independent review suggested that my firm's analysis is difficult to verify without access to the primary data used. However, access to the same prime and full-service hotel performance data used in the analysis is available for purchase through the benchmarking service STR. The review, however, endorses my analysis and valuation conclusions. The CEC goes on to state in their inquiry statement that the quality of service delivered by the specific hotel operator or the continued use of the premises for such a high-end hotel cannot be controlled through planning legislation. In my view, other than the contractual terms of the management agreement with Rosewood, as commented upon by Mark Finney of Colliers in his evidence, and the inherent suitability of the former Royal High School for hotel use, PKF Hotel Experts GmbH's review of my firm's analysis addresses this concern by stating that the developers have put together an experienced team which would typically enhance the project's chances of success. We find no major cause for concern and do think that the projections are achievable with the right product and operator in Edinburgh. The coalition states that a hotel is not a public building and that access would be restricted. I maintain that hotel bedrooms are available to everyone who is prepared to pay, as are hotels for meetings and events throughout the day and into the night. Moreover, as has been pointed out by other witnesses, the hotel's public areas, lounges, restaurants and bars, as well as the grounds, will be open to the public, and there should be regular arranged performances, art displays, music and entertainment staged there by the management company. The RHSPT alleges that the construction costs have been underestimated. My firm was provided with the construction costs of the project, which were used in our analysis and which appear reasonable. The developers have updated their construction cost estimates, which do not affect our feasibility conclusions. And in conclusion, my firm's analysis relating to the proposed Rosewood Hotel Edinburgh demonstrates that I consider the proposed 127-room scheme to be economically feasible. However, the 147-room scheme would be preferable commercially, and there would be a greater margin of safety. With specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2, points 1 and 3, I consider that the net economic benefits of the two schemes as outlined in my firm's analyses and by the analysis carried out by Andy Logan of Oxford Economics are achievable, and their contributions to sustainable economic growth are valuable and sustainable. The two schemes are of national importance. It is my view that the development of high-end hotels is implicitly acknowledged as being a core aim of ETAG's tourism strategy, and bringing the former Royal High School back into use as a world-class luxury hotel that encourages public interaction with the historic property and its immediate environment would specifically address their current initiatives, which are of national and regional importance. With specific reference to procedure notice on inquiry session 2.2, I concur with the view of Mark Finney of Colliers and do not consider that the proposed schemes and their resultant net economic impacts could be achieved in another way or on another site. With specific reference to the procedure notice on inquiry session 2, points 1 and 3, it is my view that bringing the former Royal High School back into a sustainable use as a world-class luxury hotel would specifically address the current priorities of the Edinburgh Tourism Action Group, which is of greatest regional importance.
Mr. Kett, just one further matter, if I may. Could you go, please, to your document 598, CD 598. This is the cannibalisation of demand document.
Certainly.
And if you could go to page 20, please. Now, this is your document, firstly, and therefore you're available for questionings about it. Is that so?
That's correct.
But secondly, questions were asked of the previous witness based on a figure in Exhibit K at page 20. But Mr. Kett, may I ask you this, is that really the import of your evidence, or do you go on to say something rather different, having set that out first?
As was read out by the witness, we go on to mention that as opposed to a decline, because of the change in tone of the Edinburgh hotel market as a result of the presence of a luxury hotel, we actually consider that there is potential for an overall improvement for those hotels rather than any net loss as a result of that. And that was brought out in the 2 paragraphs which Mr. Logan read out from this report.
So do you think it correct then to focus in only on a figure in Exhibit K and ignore the rest of what you actually say?
Clearly not. And it's a question of achieving a sense of balance. On the one hand, because of the over
Mr. Kett, fine, thank you very much. Just a wee word. Your microphone, you may have to use that. It seemed to have switched itself off there.
I'm so sorry. Do you want me to repeat anything?
I was checking the room, and I think everybody heard you. If anybody objects, we can rerun it. But
I'm so sorry.
it's just a question of...
It's quite all right. It's not the first time that's happened. It's a good reminder. Are you done now, Mr. Steele?
I am indeed, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, Mr. Kett. I wonder if I could start, please, by asking you to look at the appellant's document 3, which is one of your reports, I think. Am I right in thinking that this is one of your documents?
It is.
If we could just start by looking at the covering letter dated 10th February 2017, where...
I'm sorry to stop you. The document that's in front of me is dated 2015.
Right.
Just a second.
With luck, you might have a covering page or two.
This is 15. I have it.
Oh, good.
Thank you.
And I hope it's the 10th of February 2017.
I have it. Thank you.
And I think you're one of the 2 signatories of the letter.
I am.
In the first paragraph, you confirm that the conclusions that you draw in your original hotel viability analysis, dated 28th August 2015, pertaining to the above properties still apply in today's market. Do I take it that that is a reference to a viability analysis, a confidential analysis that you had carried out in August 2015?
Correct.
And do I understand that that confidential analysis was made available to the Council?
On the assumption that that is the valuation analysis, the viability analysis that your retained party then commented on, yes, I believe that to be the case.
And just to be clear about this, so far as you're aware, was the only confidential information provided to the Council for the purpose of enabling the Council to take a view on viability rather than impact?
That was my understanding.
Thank you. Then if we go on to the next paragraph, it says the document should be read in conjunction with our revised hotel viability analysis document dated 10th February 2017. First of all, what does the document refer to, please?
It refers to a revised and updated hotel viability analysis that was carried out in February 2017.
Well, that's what you have to read it in conjunction with. But is the document at the beginning of that paragraph a reference to what we come on to see, or is it a reference back to the initial viability analysis of August 2015?
I think what we're saying here is that the conclusions that we draw in 2015 still apply.
Right. So if you had access to the February 17 document, you should read it with the other confidential one from 2 years earlier.
Essentially, yes. If that's right, what was the purpose of attaching this letter to the report that then follows? Or has it just been misfiled somehow? I don't believe it's been misfiled. I don't know the purpose other than to convey something to our clients.
And just to be clear, this second viability report dated 10th February 2017 is also a confidential one made available to the Council.
It's certainly confidential, and whether or not it was made available to the Council, I don't know.
Thank you. Turning on then to the report itself in APP3, it's dated 28th August 2015 and is an Edinburgh luxury hotel market analysis. And it has another covering letter from 2 years earlier, which I don't think we need trouble with. But could you turn on, please, to page 7. Where table 2.1 sets out luxury hotels to 5-star or full-service hotels. And whatever a 6-star hotel is, it's a term used in this table, and I wonder if I could use it just to refer to the type of hotel that's described in that column. Am I right in understanding that the proposal for both Scheme 1 and Scheme 2 is to provide a hotel that would fall into the luxury 6 to 7-star column?
That is correct.
And it gives us various things to expect in a hotel of that caliber, and it gives room sizes and suite ratios and things like that. But in the line of cost of development or conversion, there's also a reference to risk element. So in the 3-star column, there's a low development risk, 4-star reasonable development risk, 5-star high development risk, and 6-star very high development risk. Is that an assessment that you agree with?
It is, and it's there for certain reasons, particularly because in the case of conversion of existing buildings, which often characterizes these developments, there are certain elements that are not there when you start with a greenfield or a brownfield site and build from scratch.
That might explain why there's a high risk associated with a 6-star hotel which is possibly looking for an iconic building to inhabit rather than building on a greenfield site. But does it explain the progression from 3 to 4 to 5?
It's more a question of the amount of investment. If you look at the numbers that are in that line, you'll see that the amount of investment on a per room basis increases. And by the time you get to £500,000 to £1 million per room, by definition, to a typical investor, the risk levels are going up because you're having to put your hand in your pocket to a more significant extent than for something on a more modest basis.
And do I take it that you become critically dependent on the occupancy rate once you've built it?
Occupancy is one thing, but shouldn't be looked at in isolation alone. I would also be looking at the average room rate and the resultant, I'm going to be sort of quite a bit of jargon, and the resultant RevPAR, which is rooms revenue per available room, is the measure that most people start with in making comparisons. and is therefore very critical to a developer of a 6 or 7 star, let's call it a world-class luxury hotel.
Does the nature of the risk, in other words, that we're looking at very high, mean that the pool of investors is perhaps smaller than other people might be fishing in?
Typically, yes.
And are those investors, the few who are in the market, pretty astute in analysing the risk that they take before investing?
Yes.
Just one other matter while we're on reports. CD 598, your cannibalisation of demand report. Just one little thing I'd like to ask you about there, and it's at page 15.
Okay.
And this is a May 2018 document. Am I right in understanding from some of the other evidence in this case that as at 2015, there wasn't much in the way of five-star hotel development in the pipeline? In other words, when this project started, or when this project came to the planning application stage.
I would have to refer to other information to be able to answer your question.
By 2018, though, if we look at Exhibit F, do we see that apart from the former Royal High School, there are 2 other luxury class hotels with scheduled opening dates in 2020 and 21?
Correct.
And are you aware that by now there are others in the pipeline as well?
I wouldn't like to quantify and have to respond to that, but I'm aware that there's other interest, and Edinburgh continues to attract interest from other operators.
And as a matter of curiosity, what's an upscale class hotel? Can we relate it to the stars that we've been looking at?
You can probably relate it to the stars. There's we're trying to move away from stars, full stop. But there's a continuum that starts with limited service, select service, mid-scale, upscale, upper upscale, luxury, and so forth. So upscale is sort of 4-star-ish.
With aspirations, perhaps?
Definitely aspirations.
Where would premium be on that list?
Where would
a premium be?
What premium in particular?
Well, there are references to premium hotels.
Again, if you're looking for... Part of the problem is that when you get to luxury, there is no premium luxury. And when you get to 5-star, you get a whole clutch of hotels, some of which are ordinary 5-star, some of which are really very special 5-star. And what we're trying to convey here is that the proposed Rosewood Hotel is a really very special 5-star luxury hotel of world-class standing. And that isn't necessarily the case with all of these applicants here that are referred to as being luxury. So I would say premium luxury is what we're referring to in that sense, something beyond the ordinary luxury.
Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Thompson.
That's grateful. I wonder if I could ask you to look next, please, at the developer's statement for Scheme 1, which is CD 39, dated 3rd September 2015. Is this a document that you've seen before?
I assume I must have done, but you will appreciate there's been a lot to read and so forth. But
Indeed.
I'm very happy to answer your questions if I can.
Well, I'm mindful of the confidentiality problem, and we've already seen that there are 2 reports that you've written that are commercially confidential. And I don't want to take you into areas that you can't go because of that consideration. But this document contains statements, apparently by the developers, the appellants, which plainly are in the public domain. So I'm going to try and ask you a little bit about those, but if you feel uncomfortable with where I'm going, please say so. What I was interested in was at page 36. Well, perhaps we should start at 34. Where the authors of this document start explaining about DHP's involvement under the heading of Hotel Viability Assessment. And if you just cast an eye over page 35 and 36, you'll see references to HVS on page 36. Where reference is made to, I take it, the first of the confidential viability analyses carried out by your company. And it tells us that HVS produced a bespoke financial model to test the operational profit or net operating income for 3 different scenarios, 127, 147, 167 rooms. Are you with me?
Yep.
Over the required size and percentage suite mix expected by a hotel group of international standing, and so on. And then we find a reference to internal rates of return, the 3rd bullet point. Present findings as a percentage of internal rates of return on equity employed, thereby allowing for the positive effects of debt leverage. Can you explain to me what that means?
In essence, what is the return on the equity component of the investment by the developers from the ensuing cash flow operations in each case?
And does that necessarily imply that there's a mix of investor capital and borrowing?
It does.
And is that the leverage, that you have a ratio of invested capital to borrowed?
Correct.
Thank you. And then over the page, we see a little table of the results of the HVS analysis showing an IRR for 127 rooms of 8, 147.15 and 167.15. And then we're told that HVS estimates the required equity IRR for institutional investors active in the development of luxury hotels to be in the 12 to 20% range, although DHP Urbanists believe that the RHS that at the RHS this ought to be in the 15 to 20 range to reflect the risk profile of the project. Do I take it that accurately reflects information that you provided?
The first part, yes.
Is that the table part?
I was referring to the 12 to 20% range, which seems
Thank you.
reasonable.
Right. Right.
And the 15 to 20% seems in line with what we were just talking about before.
Great. Thank you. Now, on that basis, we're told that HVS concluded that the development of a 127-room hotel would not meet the minimum required IRR, as there are insufficient rooms to maximise the opportunities created by the public spaces. The development of a 167-room hotel produces only slightly better returns than a hotel of 147 rooms, and that at 147 rooms there is a much more efficient balance between rooms and public areas that results in an acceptable IRR. And I take it you agree with all of that?
I do.
Now, move the clock forward about 18 months, and you're asked to produce another viability assessment. Only this time you're asked to consider as the target a 127-room hotel, which 18 months earlier you had found to be unacceptable because it only had an IRR of 8. Without breaching confidentiality, can you help us to understand how you then come to the conclusion that you did in the reports and recognition that you've been reading out today?
There was, as you say, an 18 months, 2 years, whatever, interval. During that time, the market had improved and the performance of the market had improved. Secondly, between the 127-room model that was in the report that we've just gone through and the 127-room model that we were then assessing, there were some considerable physical changes that enabled the development costs to be more limited. Taking those two factors into account enabled us to produce a more profitable model for the operation of the hotel, which had a more beneficial effect on the internal rate of return.
Did you have a fixed ratio of investment capital to borrowing when you produced the figures that we see at page 37 in the developer statement?
Can you tell me what you mean by fixed?
Yes. Did you have in mind a percentage split, what we were calling leverage on the previous page, between invested capital and borrowing?
Yes. And the third aspect of what had changed between the 2015 and 2017 assessment is that the investment climate had also improved. I can't go into detail as to what specifically was adjusted, but in the overall assessment, if the investment climate improved.
I think we've just gone off air.
That's Mr. Innes again, sir.
Shall I wait?
Remember the question.
I can
try
come
to
back.
remember.
Let me make a note of it.
Thank you.
And if Mr. Thompson re-asks it, we're broken out till 3:30. Sorry for the interruption, but it seems convenient.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I didn't put that online either.